This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Legends of the Old Plantation, Chapter 1. Uncle Remus initiates the little boy. One evening recently, the lady whom Uncle Remus calls Miss Sally missed her little 7-year-old. Making search for him through the house and through the yard, she heard the sound of voices in the old man's cabin, and looking through the window, saw the child sitting by Uncle Remus. His head rested against the old man's arm, and he was gazing with an expression of the most intense interest into the rough, weather-beaten face that beamed so kindly upon him. This is what Miss Sally heard. Bimeby, one day, atter Brer Fox been doin' all dat he could fer to catch Brer Rabbit, en Brer Rabbit been doin' all he could fer to keep him fum it, Brer Fox say to himself dat he'd put up a game on Brer Rabbit, en he ain't more'n got de words out of his mouf till Brer Rabbit come a lopin' up de big road, lookin' des as plump en as fat en as sassy as a moggin hoss in a barley patch. "Hol' on dar, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Fox, says he. "I ain't got time, Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, says he, sorter mendin' his licks. "I wanter have some confab with you, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Fox, says he. "All right, Brer Fox, but you better holler from where you stand. I'm monst'us full of fleas dis mornin'," says Brer Rabbit, says he. "I seed Brer B'ar yistiddy," said Brer Fox, says he, "en he sorter rake me over de coals 'kase you en me ain't make frien's en live neighborly, en I tole 'im dat I'd see you." Den Brer Rabbit scratch one year wid de off hind foot sorter jubiously, en den he ups en says he, "All a settin', Brer Fox. S'posen you drop roun' termorrer en take dinner wid me. We ain't got no great doin's at our house, but I speck de ole 'oman en de chilluns kin sorter scramble roun' en git up sumpin' for to stay your stomach." "I'm 'greeable, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Fox, says he. "Den I'll 'pen on you," says Brer Rabbit, says he. Nex' day, Mr. Rabbit en Miss Rabbit got up soon for de day, en raided on a gyardin like Miss Sally's out dar, en got some cabbages en some roastin' years en some sparrer grass, en dey fix up a smashin' dinner. Bimeby, one er de little rabbits, playin' out in de back yard, come runnin' in hollerin', "Oh, ma! Oh, ma! I seed Mr. Fox a comin'!" En den Brer Rabbit he tuck de chilluns by de years en made um set down, en den him en Miss Rabbit sorter dally roun' waitin' for Brer Fox, en to keep on waitin' for Brer Fox, en to keep on waitin', but no Brer Fox ain't come. Atter a while, Brer Rabbit goes to de do' easy like en peep out, en dar, stickin' fum behine de cornder, wuz de tippin' Brer Fox's tail. Den Brer Rabbit shot de do' en sot down en put his paws behine his ears en begin fer to sing. "De place whereabouts you spilled de grease, right dar you're bound to slide, and where you find a bunch of hair, you surely find de hide." Nex' day, Brer Fox set word by Mr. Mink en 'scuse himself 'kase he wuz too sick fer to come, en he ax Brer Rabbit fer to come en take dinner wid him, en Brer Rabbit says he wuz 'greeable. Bimeby, when de shadders wuz at de shortest, Brer Rabbit he sorter brush up en saunter down to Brer Fox's house, en when he got dar, he hears somebody groanin', en he look in de do', en dar he see Brer Fox settin' up in a rockin' cheer all wrop up wid flannel, en he look mighty weak. Brer Rabbit look all roun', he did, but he ain't seen no dinner. De dishpan was settin' on de table, en close by was a carvin' knife. "Look like you gwineter have chicken for dinner, Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, says he. "Oh, yes, Brer Rabbit, dey are nice, en fresh, en tender," says Brer Fox, says he. Den Brer Rabbit sorter pull his mustarsh, en he says, "You ain't got no calamus root, is you, Brer Fox? I done got so now dat I can't eat no chicken 'ceppin' she's seasoned up wid calamus root." En wid dat, Brer Rabbit lipped out de do' en dodge 'mong de bushes, en sot dar watchin' for Brer Fox. En he ain't watched long needer, 'kaze Brer Fox flung off de flannel en crope out at de house en got whar he could close in on Brer Rabbit. En bimeby, Brer Rabbit holler out, "Oh, Brer Fox, I des put yo' calamus root out here on de dish yer stump. Better come git it while it's fresh." En wid dat, Brer Rabbit gallop off home. En Brer Fox ain't never kotch 'im yit. En what's mo', honey, he ain't gwineter. End of chapter 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 2, The Wonderful Tar Baby Story. "Didn't the fox never catch the rabbit, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy the next evening. "He come mighty nigh it, honey, sho's you born. Brer Fox did. One day, atter Brer Rabbit fooled him wid dat calamus root, Brer Fox went to work and got him some tar, and mix it with some turkentime. He fix up a contraption w'at he call a tar baby, and he took dish yer tar baby and he sot her in de big road, and den he lay off in de bushes fer to see what de news was gwineter be. And he didn't hatter wait long needer, 'kaze bimeby here comes Brer Rabbit pacin' down de road, lippity clippity, clippity lippity, just as sassy as a jaybird. Brer Fox he lay low. Brer Rabbit come prancin' long twel he spied a tar baby, and den he fotch up on his behind legs like he was 'stonished. The tar baby, she sot dar, she did, and Brer Fox he lay low. "Mornin'," says Brer Rabbit, says he. "Nice weather dis mornin'," says he. Tar baby, she ain't sayin' nothin'. Brer Fox he lay low. "How does your symptoms seem to segashuate?" says Brer Rabbit, says he. Brer Fox he wink his eyes slow and lay low, and de tar baby she ain't sayin' nothin'. "How you come on, den? Is you deaf?" says Brer Rabbit, says he. "'Cause if you is, I can holler louder," says he. Tar baby stay still, and Brer Fox he lay low. "You're stuck up, dat's what you is," says Brer Rabbit, says he. "And I'm gonna cure you, dat's what I'm gonna do," says he. Brer Fox he sorter chuckle in his stomach, he did, but Tar Baby ain't sayin' nothin'. "I'm gwineter learn you to talk to 'spectable folks if it's de last act," says Brer Rabbit, says he. "If you don't take off dat hat and tell me howdy, I'm gonna bust you wide open," says he. Tar Baby stay still, and Brer Fox he lay low. Brer Rabbit kep on axin' him, and de Tar Baby she keep on sayin' nothin'. 'Tw't presently Brer Rabbit draw back with his fists, he did, en blip! He tuck her side of de head. Right dar's where he broke his molasses jug. His fist stuck, en he can't pull loose. De tar hilt him, but Tar Baby, she stay still, en Brer Fox, he lay low. "Ef you don't let me loose, I'll knock you agin," says Brer Rabbit, sezee, en wid dat he fotch her a wipe wid de udder han', en dat one stuck. Tar Baby, she still ain't sayin' nothin', en Brer Fox, he lay low. "Turn me loose 'fo' I kick de natchul stuffin' out you," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. But de Tar Baby, she ain't sayin' nothin'. She des hilt on, en de Brer Rabbit lose de use of his feet in de same way. Brer Fox, he lay low. Den Brer Rabbit squall out dat ef de Tar Baby don't tu'n him loose, he'd butt her crank-sided. En den he butted, en his head got stuck. Den Brer Fox, he sauntered forth, lookin' just as innercent as one of your mammy's mockingbirds. "Howdy, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Fox, sezee. "You look sorter stuck up this mornin'," says he, and then he rolled on de ground and laughed twel he couldn't laugh no more. "I speck you'll take dinner with me dis time, Brer Rabbit. I done laid in some calamus root, and I ain't gwineter take no 'skuse," says Brer Fox, sezee. Here Uncle Remus paused and drew a 2-pound yam out of the ashes. "Did the fox eat the rabbit?" asked the little boy to whom the story had been told. "Oh, dat's all de fur de tale goes," replied the old man. "He might, and then he mightn't. Some say Judge B'ar come 'long and loosed 'em. Some say he didn't. I hear Miss Sally callin'. You better run 'long." End of chapter. This year's a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 3. Why Mr. Possum Loves Peace. "One night," said Uncle Remus, taking Miss Sally's little boy on his knee and stroking the child's hair thoughtfully and caressingly, "one night Brer Possum call by for Brer Coon 'cordin' to agreement, en after gobblin' up a dish of fried greens en smokin' a seegyar, dey rambled forth fer to see how de balance of de settlement wuz gittin' 'long. Brer Coon, he wuz one er deze natchul pacers, en he racked 'long same as Mars John's bay pony, en Brer Possum, he went in a hand gallop, en dey got over a heap of ground. Brer Possum, he got his belly full of persimmons, en Brer Coon, he scoop up a abundance of frogs en tadpoles. Dey amble 'long, dey did, des as sociable as a basket er kittens, twel bimeby they hear Mr. Dog talkin' to hisse'f way off in de woods. "S'posen he runs up on us, Brer Possum, w'at you gwineter do?" says Brer Coon, sezee. Brer Possum sorter laugh round de corners of his mouth. "Oh, ef he come, Brer Coon, I'm a gwineter stan' by you," says Brer Possum. "W'at you gwineter do?" says he. "Who? Me?" says Brer Coon. "Ef he run onter me, I'll lay I'll give him one twist," says he. "Did the dog come?" asked the little boy. "Go 'way, honey," responded the old man in an impressive tone. "Go 'way. Mr. Dog, he come a zoomin', en he ain't wait fer to say howdy needer. he des sail into de two of 'em. De very fus pass he make, Brer Possum fetch a grin from year to year, en keel over like he wuz dead. Den Mr. Dog, he sail inter Brer Coon, en right dar's whar he drap his money purse, 'kaze Brer Coon wuz cut out fer dat kinder business, en he fa'rly wipe up de face er de earth with him. You better believe dat when Mr. Dog got a chance to make hisse'f scarce he took it, en what der wuz lef' of him went skedaddlin' through dese woods like it was shot out of a musket. En Brer Coon, he sorter lick his clothes inter shape en wipe off, en Brer Possum, he lay dar like he wuz dead, twel bimeby he raise up sorter keerful like, en when he find de coast clear, he scramble up en scamper off like sumpin' was after him. Here Uncle Remus paused long enough to pick up a live coal of fire in his fingers, transfer it to the palm of his hand, and thence to his clay pipe, which he had been filling, a proceeding that was viewed by the little boy with undisguised admiration. The old man then proceeded. Next time Brer Possum met Brer Coon 'fused to 'spond after his howdy, and dis make Brer Possum feel mighty bad, seein' as how dey useter make so many 'scursions tergedder. "What make you hol' your head so high, Brer Coon?" says Brer Possum, says he. "I ain't runnin' wid cowards deze days," says Brer Coon. "When I wants you I'll send fer you," says he. Den Brer Possum git mighty mad. "Who's any coward?" says he. "You is," says Brer Coon. "Dat's who. I ain't 'sociatin' wid dem w'at lays down on de groun' en plays dead when der's a free fight gwine on," says he. Den Brer Possum grin en laugh fit to kill hisse'f. "Lord, Brer Coon, you don't speck I done dat 'cause I wuz feared, does you?" says he. "Why, I wa'n't no more feared dan you is dis minnit. What wuz dey fer to be skeered un?" says he. "I knowed you'd get away wid Mr. Dog ef I didn't, en I'd des lay dar watchin' you shake him, waitin' fer to put in when de time come," says he. Brer Coon turn up his nose. "That's a mighty fine tale," says he, "when Mr. Dog ain't mo'n tech you 'fo' you keel over en lay dar stiff," says he. "Dat's des w'at I wuz gwineter tell you 'bout," says Brer Possum, says he. "I wa'n't no more skeered dan you is right now, en I wuz fixin' fer to give Mr. Dog a sample er my jaw," says he. "But I'm de mos' ticklish chap w'at you ever laid eyes on, en no sooner did Mr. Dog put his nose down yer among my ribs dat I got ter laughin', en I laughed twel I ain't had no use of my limbs," says he. "En it's a mussy unto Mr. Dog dat I wuz ticklish, 'kaze a little mo' en I'd a et him up," says he. "I don't mind fightin', Brer Coon, en no mo' dan you does," says he. "But I declare ter gracious ef I kin stan' ticklin'. Git me in a row whar der ain't no ticklin' 'lowed, en I'm your man," says he. "En down ter dis day," continued Uncle Remus, watching the smoke from his pipe curl upward over the little boy's head, "down ter dis day, Brer Possum's bound ter surrender when you tech him one in the short ribs, en he'll laugh ef he knows he's gwineter be smashed fer it." End of chapter 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 4. How Mr. Rabbit Was Too Sharp for Mr. Fox. "Uncle Remus," said the little boy one evening, when he had found the old man with little or nothing to do, Did the fox kill and eat the rabbit when he caught him with the tar baby?" "Law, honey, ain't I tell you 'bout that?" replied the old darky, chuckling slyly. "I 'clar to gracious, I oughter told you that. But old man Nod was riding on my eyelids twel a little more'n I disremembered my own name, and den on to dat here come your mammy hollerin' after you. Why, what I tell you when I fust begun? I tole you Brer Rabbit was a monster soon creetur. Leastways, dat's what I laid out fer to tell you. Well, den, honey, don't you go and make no udder calculations, 'kaze in dem days Brer Rabbit and his fambly was at de head er der gang when any racket was on hand, and dar dey stayed. 'Fo' you begins fer to wipe your eyes 'bout Brer Rabbit, you wait and see whereabouts Brer Rabbit gwineter fetch up at. But dat's needer here nor dar. When Brer Fox find Brer Rabbit mixed up wid the tar baby, he feel mighty good, and he roll on de ground and laugh. Bimeby, he up and say, sezee, "Well, I speck I got you this time, Brer Rabbit," sezee. "Maybe I ain't, but I speck I is. You been runnin' round here sassin' after me a mighty long time, but I speck you done come to de end er de row. You been cuttin' up yo' capers and bouncin' round in dis neighborhood ontwell you come to believe yourself de boss of de whole gang, and den you er allers somewheres where you ain't got no business," says Brer Fox, sezee. "Who ax you fer to come and strike up an acquaintance wid dish yer tar baby? And who stuck you up dar where you is? Nobody in de roun' world. You jest tuck and jam yourself on dat tar baby widout waitin' for any invite," says Brer Fox, sezee. "And dar you is, and dar you gwine stay twel I fixes up a bresh pile and fires her up, 'kaze I'm gwineter bobbycue you dis day sho," says Brer Fox, sezee. Den Brer Rabbit talk mighty humble. "I don't keer what you do wid me, Brer Fox," sezee, "jes so you don't fling me in dat briar patch. Roast me, Brer Fox," sezee, "but don't fling me in dat briar patch," sezee. "Hit so much trouble fer to kindle a fire," says Brer Fox, sezee, "dat I speck I'll hatter hang you," sezee. "Hang me just as high as you please, Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, sezee, "but do for de Lord's sake don't fling me in dat briar patch," sezee. "I ain't got no string," said Brer Fox, sezee, "and now I speck I'll hatter drown you," sezee. "Drown me just as deep as you please, Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, sezee, "but don't fling me in dat briar patch," sezee. "Dey ain't no water nigh," says Brer Fox, sezee. "Now I speck I'll hatter skin you," says he. "Skin me, Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Snatch out my eyeballs, tear out my ears by de roots, and cut off my legs," says he. "But do please, Brer Fox, don't fling me in dat briar patch," says he. Course, Brer Fox wanter hurt Brer Rabbit bad as he kin, so he cotch him in by de hind legs and slung him right in de middle of de briar patch. Der was a considerable flutter where Brer Rabbit struck de bushes, and Brer Fox sorter hang round fer to see what was gwineter happen. Bimeby, he hear somebody call him, and way up de hill he see Brer Rabbit sittin' cross-legged on a chinkapin log, combin' de pitch out'n his ha'r wid a chip. Den Brer Fox knowed dat he been swap off mighty bad. Brer Rabbit was bleedsid fer to fling back some of his sass, and he holler out, "Bred and born in a briar patch, Brer Fox, bred and born in a briar patch." And wid dat, he skip out just as lively as a cricket in de embers. End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer,
please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 5. The Story of the Deluge and How It Came About. "One time," said Uncle Remus, adjusting his spectacles so as to be able to see how to thread a large darning needle with which he was patching his coat. "One time, way back yonder, 'fore you was born, honey, and 'fore Mars John or Miss Sally was born, way back yonder, 'fore any of us was born, de animals and de creeturs sorter lectioneer round 'mong themselves, twell at last dey agreed fer to have an assembly. In dem days," continued the old man, observing a look of incredulity on the little boy's face, "in dem days creeturs had lots mo' sense dan dey got now. Let 'lone dat, dey had sense same like folks. Hit was tech an' go wid 'em too, mon, an' when dey make up der minds w'at hatter be done, 'twa'n't mo' dan mention fer hit wuz done. Well, dey 'lected dat dey hatter hold er 'sembly fer to sorter straighten out marters an' hear de complaints, an' when de day come dey was on hand. De lion, he was dar, 'kase he wuz de king, an' he hatter be dar. De rhinoceros, he was dar, an' de elephant, he was dar, an' de camels, an' de cows, an' plumb down to de crawfishes, dey was dar. Dey was all dar. An' when de lion shook his mane an' tuck his seat in de big cheer, den de session begun fer to commence." "What did they do, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy. "I can't skacely call to mind exactly what they did do, but they spoke speeches an' hollered an' cussed, an' flung der language round des like when your daddy was gwineter run for de legislator an' got left. Howsomever, dey ranged der affairs an' splained der business. Bimeby, while dey was disputin' longer one er another, de elephant trompled on one er de crawfishes. Co'se, when dat creetur put his foot down, whatsomever's under der was bound fer to be squished, an' der wa'n't nuff er dat crawfish lef fer to tell dat he been dar. Dis make de udder crawfishes mighty mad, an' dey sorter swarmed tergedder an' drawed up a kinder peramble wid some wherefores in it, an' read her out in dat there assembly. But, bless gracious, sech a racket wuz a gwine on dat nobody ain't hear it, 'ceppin' maybe de mud turkle an' de spring lizard, an' der influence wuz powerful lackin'. Bimeby, whiles de nunicorn wuz 'sputin' wid de lion, an' while de hyener wuz a laughin' to hisse'f, de elephant squished another one er de crawfishes, an' little mo' an' he'd a ruint de mud turkle. Den de crawfishes, w'at dey wuz left un 'em, swarmed tergedder an' drawed up another peramble wid some mo' wherefores, but dey might as well have sung Ole Dan Tucker inter a harricane. De udder creeturs wuz too busy wid de fussin' fer to 'spon' unter de crawfishes, so dar dey wuz, de crawfishes, an' dey didn't know w'at minute wuz gwineter be de next, an' dey kep on gittin' madder an' madder an' skeerder an' skeerder, twel bimeby dey 'gun to wink ter de mud turkle an' de spring lizard, an' den dey bo'd little holes in de groun' an' went down outer sight." "Who did, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy. "De crawfishes, honey. Dey bo'd into de groun' an' kep on bo'in' till dey unlooshed de fountains er de youth, an' de water squirt out an' rose higher an' higher twel de hills was kivered, an' de creeturs was all drownded, an' all because dey let on 'mong demselves dat dey was bigger dan de crawfishes." Then the old man blew the ashes from a smoking yam and proceeded to remove the peeling. "Where was the ark, Uncle Remus?" the little boy inquired presently. "Which ark's dat?" asked the old man in a tone of well-feigned curiosity. "Noah's ark," replied the child. "Don't you pester wid old man Noah, honey. I bound he took keer of dat ark. Dat's what he was dar for, and dat's what he done. Leastways, dat's what dey tells me. But don't you bother longer dat ark, 'ceppin' your mammy fetches it up. There might ha' been 2 deluges, and den again, there mightn't. Ef der was any ark in dish yer w'at de crawfishes brung on, I ain't heerd tell un it, and when dey ain't no arks 'roun', I ain't got no time fer to make 'em put one in dar. It's gittin' on your bedtime, honey." End of chapter. This here's a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 6. Mr. Rabbit grossly deceives Mr. Fox. One evening when the little boy, whose nights with Uncle Remus were as entertaining as those Arabian ones of blessed memory, had finished supper and hurried out to sit with his venerable patron, he found the old man in great glee. Indeed, Uncle Remus was talking and laughing to himself at such a rate that the little boy was afraid he had company. The truth is, Uncle Remus had heard the child coming, and, when the rosy-cheeked chap put his head in at the door, was engaged in a monologue, the burden of which seemed to be, "Oh, Molly Har, what you doin' dar? Sittin' in de corner smokin' your cigar?" As a matter of course, this vague allusion reminded the little boy of the fact that the wicked fox was still in pursuit of the rabbit, and he immediately put his curiosity in the shape of a question. "Uncle Remus, did the rabbit have to go clean away when he got loose from the tar baby?"
Bless gracious, honey, Daddy didn't. Who? Him? You dunno nothin' at all 'bout Brer Rabbit if dat's de way you puttin' him down. What he gwine way fer? He mighter stayed sorter close till de pitch rub off'n his hair, but 'tweren't many days 'fore he was lopin' up and down de neighborhood just as same as ever, and I dunno if he weren't more sassier than before. Seemed like dat de tale 'bout how he got mixed up wid de tar baby got roun' 'mongst de neighbors. Miss Meadows and de gals got wind of it, and de nex' time Brer Rabbit paid 'em a visit, Miss Meadows tackled him 'bout it, and de gals sot up a monst'us gigglement. Brer Rabbit, he sot up des cool as a cowcumber, he did, and let 'em run on."
"Who was Miss Meadows, Uncle Remus?" inquired the little boy.
Don't ask me, honey. She was in de tale, Miss Meadows and de gals was, and de tale I give you is like the one that was given to me. Brer Rabbit, he sot dar, he did, sorter lame like, and den by he cross his legs, he did, and wink his eyes slow, and up and say, sezee,
"Ladies, Brer Fox was my daddy's riding hoss for 30 year, maybe more, but 30 year dat I knows un," sezee, and den he paid him his respects, and tip his beaver, and march off, he did, just as stiff and as stuck up as a fire stick. Nex' day, Brer Fox come a callin', and when he gun fer to laugh about Brer Rabbit, Miss Meadows and de gals, dey ups and tells him 'bout what Brer Rabbit said. Den Brer Fox grit his tooths, sho nuff he did, and he look mighty dumpy, but when he riz for to go, he up and say, sezee, "Ladies, I ain't disputin' what you have to say, but I'll make Brer Rabbit chaw up his words and spit 'em out right here where you can see 'em," sezee, and wid dat off Brer Fox put. And when he got in de big road,
he shook the dew off'n his tail and made a straight shoot for Brer Rabbit's house. When he got dar, Brer Rabbit was 'spectin' on him, and de do' was shut fas'. Brer Fox knock. Nobody ain't answer. Brer Fox knock. Nobody answer. Den he knock again. Blam, blam. Den Brer Rabbit holler out, mighty weak, "Is dat you, Brer Fox? I want you to run and fetch de doctor. Dat bait er parsley what I et dis mornin' is gittin' way wid me. Do please, Brer Fox, run quick," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "I come after you, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Fox, sezee. "Dere's gwineter be a party up at Miss Meadows," sezee. "All de gals'll be dere, and I promised dat I'd fetch you. De gals, dey 'lowed dat it wouldn't be no party 'ceppin' I fotch you," says Brer Fox, sezee. Den Brer Rabbit say he was too sick, and Brer Fox say he wasn't, and dar dey had it up and down, 'sputin' and contendin'. Brer Rabbit say he can't walk. Brer Fox say he tote 'im. Brer Rabbit say, "How?" Brer Fox say, "In his arms." Brer Rabbit say he'd drap him. Brer Fox 'low how he wouldn't. Bimeby, Brer Rabbit say he go if Brer Fox can tote 'im on his back. Brer Fox said he would. Brer Rabbit say he can't ride widout a saddle. Brer Fox say he'd get a saddle. Brer Rabbit say he can't set in a saddle less he have a bridle fer to hol' on by. Brer Fox say he git de bridle. Brer Rabbit say he can't ride widout a blind bridle, 'cause Brer Fox be shyin' at stumps long de road and fling him off. Brer Fox say he gonna git a blind bridle. Den Brer Rabbit say he'll go. Den Brer Fox say he ride Brer Rabbit mos' up to Miss Meadows's, and den he could git down and walk de balance of de way. Brer Rabbit agreed, and den Brer Fox lipped out atter de saddle and de bridle. Co'se Brer Rabbit know de game dat Brer Fox was fixin' fer to play, and he determinin' fer to outdo him, and by de time he comb his ha'r and twist his mustarsh and sorter rig up, yer comes Brer Fox, saddle and bridle on, and lookin' as purty as a circus pony. He trot up to de do' and stand der pawin' de ground and chompin' de bit same like a sho' nuff hoss, and Brer Rabbit he mount, he did, and dey amble off. Brer Fox can't see behind wid de blind bridle on, but bimeby he feel Brer Rabbit raise one of his foots. "What you doin' now, Brer Rabbit?" says he. "Shortenin' de left stirrup, Brer Fox," says he. Bimeby, Brer Rabbit raised up the udder foot. "What are you doin' now, Brer Rabbit?" says he. "Pullin' down my pants, Brer Fox," says he. All de time, bless gracious, honey, Brer Rabbit were puttin' on his spurs, and when dey got close to Miss Meadows, where Brer Rabbit was to git off, and Brer Fox made a motion fer to stand still, Brer Rabbit slapped those spurs into Brer Fox's flanks, and you better believe he got over ground. When they got to de house, Miss Meadows and all de gals was settin' on de piazzer, and stidder stoppin' at de gate, Brer Rabbit rid on by, he did, and den come gallopin' down de road and up to de hoss rack, which he hitched Brer Fox at, and den he saunter into de house, he did, and shake hands wid de gals, and set dar smokin' his seegar, same as a town man. By he draw in a long puff, and den he let hit out in a cloud, and square hisself back and holler out, he did, "Ladies, ain't I done tell you Brer Fox was de ridin' hoss for our fambly? He's sorter losin' his gait now, but I speck I kin fetch him all right in a month or two," says he. And den Brer Rabbit sorter grin, he did, and de gals giggle, en Miss Meadows, she praise up de pony, en dar was Brer Fox hitched fast to de rack en couldn't help hisse'f.
"Is that all, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy as the old man paused.
Dat ain't all, honey, but 'twon't do fer to give out too much cloth fer to cut out one pair of pants, replied the old man sententiously.
End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 7. Mr. Fox is again victimized. When Miss Sally's little boy went to Uncle Remus the next night to hear the conclusion of the adventure in which the rabbit made a riding horse of the fox, to the great enjoyment and gratification of Miss Meadows and the girls, he found the old man in a bad humor.
"I ain't tellin' no tales to bad chilluns," says Uncle Remus curtly.
"But, Uncle Remus, I ain't bad," said the little boy plaintively.
"Who dat chunkin' dem chickens dis mawnin? Who dat knockin' out folks' eyes wid dat yallerbammer sling des 'fo' dinner? Who dat sickin' dat pinter puppy atter my pig? Who dat scatterin' my Ingun sets? An' who dat flingin' rocks on top er my house, which a little mo'n one of 'em could a dropped spang on my head?"
"Well, now, Uncle Remus, I didn't go to do it. I won't do so any more. Please, Uncle Remus, if you will tell me, I'll run to the house and bring you some tea cakes."
"Seein' 'em's better'n hearin' tell of 'em," replied the old man,
the severity of his countenance relaxing somewhat. But the little boy darted out, and in a few minutes came running back with his pockets full and his hands full.
"I lay yo' mammy'll 'spicion dat de rat's stomachs is widenin' dis neighborhood when she come fer to count up her cakes," said Uncle Remus with a chuckle. "Dese," he continued, dividing the cakes into 2 equal parts, "dese I'll tackle now, en dese I'll lay by fer Sunday. Lemme see. I mos' dismember whereabouts Brer Fox en Brer Rabbit wuz."
"The rabbit rode the fox to Miss Meadows's and hitched him to the horse rack," said the little boy.
"Why, course he did," said Uncle Remus. "Course he did. Well, Brer Rabbit rid Brer Fox up, he did, en tied him to de rack, en den sot out in de piazzer wid de gals a smokin' er his seegyar wid mo' proudness dan w'at you mos' ever see. Dey talk, en dey sing, en dey play on de pianner, de gals did, twel bimeby hit come time fer Brer Rabbit fer to be gwine, en he tell um all good bye, en strut out to de hoss rack same as if he wuz de king er de patrollers, en den he mount Brer Fox en ride off. Brer Fox ain't sayin' nothin' 't all. He des rack off, he did, en keep his mouf shet, en Brer Rabbit knowed der wuz bizness cookin' up fer him, en he feel monstus skittish. Brer Fox amble on twel he git in de long lane outer side of Miss Meadows' house, en den he tu'n loose, he did. He rip en he roar, en he cuss en he swar, he snort en he cavort.
"What was he doing that for, Uncle Remus?" the little boy inquired.
He was tryin' fer to fling Brer Rabbit off'n his back, bless yo' soul, but he des might as well as rastle wid his own shadder. Every time he hump hisse'f, Brer Rabbit slap de spurs in him, en dar dey had it, up en down. Brer Fox fairly toe up at de ground, he did, en he jump so high en he jump so quick dat he mighty nigh snatch his own tail off. Dey keep on gwine on dis way twel bimeby Brer Fox lay down en roll over, he did, en dis sorter unsettle Brer Rabbit, but by de time Brer Fox got back on his footses agin, Brer Rabbit was gwine through de underbrush mo' samer dan a racehoss. Brer Fox he lit out atter him, he did, en he push Brer Rabbit so close dat it was 'bout all he could do fer ter git in a holler tree. Hole was too little fer Brer Fox fer ter git in, en he hatter lay down en rest en gedder his mind tergedder. While he was lyin' dar, Mr. Buzzard came floppin' 'long, en seein' Brer Fox stretch out on de groun', he lit en view de premisses. Den Mr. Buzzard sorter shake his wing, put his head on one side, en say to hisse'f like, sezee, "Brer Fox is dead, en I's so sorry," sezee. "No, I ain't dead needer," said Brer Fox, sezee. "I got ole man Rabbit pent up in here," sezee, "en I'm a gwine ter git him dis time ef it takes 12 Christmasses," sezee. Den, atter some more palaver, Brer Fox make a bargain dat Mr. Buzzard was to watch de hole en keep Brer Rabbit dar whiles Brer Fox went atter his axe. Den Brer Fox he lope off, he did, en Mr. Buzzard he tuck up his stan' at de hole. Bimeby, w'en all git still, Brer Rabbit sorter scramble down close ter de hole, he did, en holler out, "Brer Fox! Oh, Brer Fox!" Brer Fox done gone, en nobody say nothin'. Den Brer Rabbit squall out like he was mad, sezee. "You needn't talk less you water," sezee. "I knows you're dar, en I ain't keerin'," sezee. "I des wanter tell you dat I wish mighty bad Brer Turkey Buzzard was here," sezee. Den Mr. Buzzard try to talk like Brer Fox. "What you want wid Mr. Buzzard?" sezee. "Oh, nothin' in tickler, 'cep dere's de fattest gray squirrel in here dat I ever see," sezee. "En ef Brer Turkey Buzzard was 'roun' he'd be mighty glad fer to git him," sezee. "How's Mr. Buzzard gwine to git him?" says the Buzzard, sezee. "Well, dar's a little hole 'roun' on de udder side er dis tree," says Brer Rabbit, sezee, "en ef Brer Tucky Buzzard was here so he could take up his stand dar," sezee, "I'd drive dat squirrel out," sezee. "Drive him out, den," says Mr. Buzzard, sezee, "en I'll see dat Brer Tucky Buzzard gits him," sezee. Den Brer Rabbit he kick up a racket like he was drivin' sumpin' out, en Mr. Buzzard he rush 'roun' fer to ketch de squirrel, en Brer Rabbit he dash out, he did, en den he just fly fer home. At this point Uncle Remus took one of the tea cakes, held his head back, opened his mouth, dropped the cake in with a sudden motion, looked at the little boy with an expression of astonishment, and then closed his eyes and began to chew, mumbling as an accompaniment the plaintive tune of "Don't You Grieve After Me." The seance was over, but before the little boy went into the big house, Uncle Remus laid his rough hand tenderly on the child's shoulder and remarked in a confidential tone, "Honey, you must git up soon Christmas mornin' and open de do', 'kase I gwineter bounce in on Marse John and Miss Sally and holler Christmas gif, des like I useter durin' de farmin' days 'fo' de war, when ole Miss wuz alive. I bound dey don't fergit dis ole nigger, needer. When you hear me callin' de pigs, honey, you des hop up en unfasten de do'. I lay I'll give Marse John one er dese yer s'prise parties." End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 8. Mr. Fox is outdone by Mr. Buzzard. "Ef I don't run inter no mistakes," remarked Uncle Remus as the little boy came tripping in to see him after supper, Mr. Turkey Buzzard was guardin' de holler whar Brer Rabbit went in at, en which he come out'n."
The silence of the little boy verified the old man's recollection.
"Well, Mr. Buzzard, he feel mighty lonesome, he did, but he done promised Brer Fox dat he'd stay, en he 'termine fer to sorter hang 'roun' en join in de joke. En he ain't hatter wait long, needer, 'kaze bimeby here come Brer Fox gallopin' through de woods wid an axe on his shoulder. "'How you speck Brer Rabbit gittin' on, Brer Buzzard?' sez Brer Fox, sezee. "'Oh, he in dar,' sez Brer Buzzard, sezee. 'He mighty still, dough. I speck he takin' a nap,' sezee. "'Den I'm des in time fer to wake him up,' sez Brer Fox, sezee. En wid dat he fling off his coat en spit in his hands en grab de axe. Den he draw back en come down on de tree. Pow! En eve'y time he come down wid de axe, pow! Mr. Buzzard, he step high, he did, en holler out, 'Oh, he in dar, Brer Fox, he in dar sho!' En eve'y time a chip 'ud fly off, Mr. Buzzard, he'd jump en dodge en hol' his head sideways, he would, en holler, 'He in dar, Brer Fox, I done heerd him, he in dar sho!' En Brer Fox, he lammed away at dat holler tree, he did, like a man maulin' rails, twel bimeby, atter he done got de tree mos' cut through, he stop fer to ketch his breff, en he seed Mr. Buzzard laughin' behind his back, he did, en right den and dar, widout gwine any fudder, Brer Fox, he smelt a rat. But Mr. Buzzard, he keep on hollerin', 'He in dar, Brer Fox, he in dar sho, I done seed him.' Den Brer Fox, he make like he peepin' up de holler, en he say, sezee, 'Run yer, Brer Buzzard, en look ef dis ain't Brer Rabbit's foot hangin' down yer.' En Mr. Buzzard, he come steppin' up, he did, same as ef he were treadin' on kurkleburrs, en he stick his head in de hole, en no sooner did he done dat dan Brer Fox grab 'im. Mr. Buzzard flap his wings en scramble 'roun' right smartually, he did, but 'twarn't no use. Brer Fox had de 'vantage er de grip, he did, en he hilt 'im right down ter de groun'. Den Mr. Buzzard squall out, sezee, 'Lemme 'lone, Brer Fox. Turn me loose,' sezee. 'Brer Rabbit'll git out. You're gittin' close at him,' sezee, 'en 'lev'm mo' licks'll fetch him,' sezee. 'I nigher ter you, Brer Buzzard,' said Brer Fox, sezee, 'dan I'll be ter Brer Rabbit dis day,' sezee. 'What you foolin' me for?' sezee. 'Lemme 'lone, Brer Fox,' sez Mr. Buzzard, sezee. 'My ole 'oman waitin' for me. Brer Rabbit in dar,' sezee. 'There's a bunch er his fur in dat blackberry bush,' sez Brer Fox, sezee, 'en dat ain't de way he come,' sezee. Den Mr. Buzzard up en tell Brer Fox how 'twuz, en he 'lowed, Mr. Buzzard did, dat Brer Rabbit wuz de low downdest what's his name w'at he ever run up wid. Den Brer Fox sezee, 'Dat's needer here nor dar, Brer Buzzard,' sezee. 'I lef' you yer fer to watch dis yer hole, en I lef' Brer Rabbit in dar. I comes back en I finds you at de hole, en Brer Rabbit ain't in dar,' sezee. 'I'm gwineter make you pay fer it. I done bin tampered wid twel plumb down ter de sapsucker'll set on a log en sassy me. I'm gwineter fling you in a bresh heap en burn you up,' sezee. 'Ef you fling me on de fire, Brer Fox, I'll fly away,' sez Mr. Buzzard, sezee. 'I'll settle yo' hash right now,' sez Brer Fox, sezee. En wid dat he grab Mr. Buzzard by de tail, he did, en make fer to dash 'im in de ground. But des 'bout dat time de tail fedders come out, en Mr. Buzzard sail off like one er deze yer berloons. En ez he riz, he holler back, 'You gimme good start, Brer Fox,' sezee, en Brer Fox sot dar en watch 'im fly outer sight.
But what became of the rabbit, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy.
Don't you pester longer, Brer Rabbit, honey, en don't you fret 'bout him. You'll hear whar he went en how he come out. Dish yer cold snap rastles wid my bones now," continued the old man, putting on his hat and picking up his walking stick. "Hit rastles wid me monstrous, en I gotter rack 'round en see ef I kin run up ag'inst some Christmas leavin's."
End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 9. Miss Cow falls a victim to Mr. Rabbit. "Uncle Remus," said the little boy, "what became of the rabbit after he fooled the buzzard and got out of the hollow tree?"
"Who, Brer Rabbit? Bless yo' soul, honey, Brer Rabbit went skippin' 'long home, he did, des as sassy as a jay bird at a sparrer's nest. He went gallopin' 'long, he did, but he feel mighty fired out en stiff in de joints, en he wuz mighty nigh dead fer sumpin fer to drink. En bimeby, w'en he got mos' home, he spied ole Miss Cow feedin' 'roun' in the field, he did, en he 'termin' fer to try his han' wid her. Brer Rabbit know mighty well dat Miss Cow won't give 'im no milk, 'kase she done refuse 'im more'n once, en w'en his ole 'oman wuz sick, at dat. But never mind dat. Brer Rabbit sorter dance up the long side er de fence, he did, en holler out, 'Howdy, Sis Cow,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'Why, howdy, Brer Rabbit,' sez Miss Cow, sez she. 'How you find yo'se'f deze days, Sis Cow?' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'I'm sorter tolerable, Brer Rabbit. How you come on?' sez Miss Cow, sez she. 'Oh, I'm des tolerable myself, Sis Cow, sorter lingerin' 'twixt a balk en a breakdown,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'How yo' folks, Brer Rabbit?' sez Miss Cow, sez she. 'They des middlin', Sis Cow. How Brer Bull gittin' on?' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'Oh, sorter so-so,' sez Miss Cow, sez she. 'There's some mighty nice persimmons up dis tree, Sis Cow,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee, 'en I'd like mighty well fer to have some un um,' sezee. 'How you gwineter git um, Brer Rabbit?' sez she. 'I 'lowed maybe dat I might ax you fer to butt 'ginst the tree en shake some down, Sis Cow,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'Co'se Miss Cow don't wanter discommerdate Brer Rabbit, en she march up to de 'simmon tree, she did, en hit it a rap wid her horns. Blam! Now den,' continued Uncle Remus, tearing off a corner of a plug of tobacco and cramming it into his mouth. 'Now den, dem 'simmons wuz green's grass, en na'er one never drap. Den Miss Cow butt de tree. Blim! Never a 'simmon drap. Den Miss Cow sorter back off a little en run agin de tree. Blip! No 'simmons never drap. Den Miss Cow back off a little fudder, she did, en hist her tail on der back en come agin a tree kerblam! She come so fast en she come so hard twel one er her horns went spang through de tree, en dar she was. She can't go for'ards, she can't go back'ards. Dis exactly w'at Brer Rabbit was waitin' fer, en he no sooner seed ole Miss Cow all fastened up dan he jump up, he did, en cut de pigeon wing. 'Come help me out, Brer Rabbit,' sez Miss Cow, sez she. 'I can't climb, Sis Cow,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee, 'but I'll run en tell Brer Bull,' sezee, en wid dat Brer Rabbit put out fer home, en 'twa'n't long 'fo' here he come wid his ole 'oman en all his chilluns, en even de las' one er de fambly wuz totin' a pail. De big uns had big pails, en de little ones had little pails, en dey all surrounded ole Miss Cow, dey did, en you hear me, honey, dey milked her dry. De ole uns milked en de young uns milked, en den when dey done got enough, Brer Rabbit he up en say, sezee, I wish you mighty well, Sis Cow. I 'lowed, bein' how that you'd had her sorter camp out all night, that I better come and swedge your bag, sezee. Do which, Uncle Remus? Asked the little boy. Go long, honey. Swedge your bag. When cows don't git milked, de bag swells, and you can hear 'em a moanin' and a bellerin', just like they was gittin' hurted. That's what Brer Rabbit done. He 'sembled his family, he did, and he swedged ole Miss Cow's bag. Miss Cow, she stood dar, she did, and she study and study and strive fer to break loose, but the horn done bin jammed in de tree so tight dat 'twuz way 'fo' de day in de mornin' 'fo' she loose it. Anyhow, it was endurin' de night, and atter she get loose she sorter graze roun', she did, fer to justify her stummuck, she 'lowed, ole Miss Cow did, dat Brer Rabbit be hoppin' 'long dat way fer to see how she gittin' on, en she tuck'n lay her trap fer him. And just 'bout sunrise, what 'ud ole Miss Cow do but march up ter de 'simmon tree en stick her horn back in de hole. But bless yo' soul, honey, while she was croppin' de grass, she took one mouthful too many, 'kaze when she hitch on ter de 'simmon tree agin, Brer Rabbit was settin' in de fence cornder a watchin' her. Den Brer Rabbit he say to hisse'f, "Hey yo," sezee, "w'at dish yer gwine on now? Hol' yo' hosses, Sis Cow, twel you hear me comin'," sezee. En den he crope off down de fence, Brer Rabbit did, en bimeby, here he come, lippity clippity, clippity lippity, des a sailin' down de big road. "Mornin', Sis Cow," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "How'd you come on dis mornin'?" sezee. "Po'ly, Brer Rabbit, po'ly," sez Miss Cow, sez she. "I ain't had no res' all night," sez she. "I can't pull loose," sez she, "but ef you'll come en ketch holt of my tail, Brer Rabbit," sez she, "I reckon maybe I kin fetch my horn out," sez she. Den Brer Rabbit he come up a little closer, but he ain't gittin' too close. "I speck I'm nigh enough, Sis Cow," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "I'm a mighty puny man, en I might git trompled," sezee. "You do de pullin', Sis Cow," sezee, "en I'll do de gruntin'," sezee. Den Miss Cow, she pull out her horn, she did, en tuck atter Brer Rabbit, en down de big road dey had it, Brer Rabbit wid his years laid back, en Miss Cow wid her head down en her tail curl. Brer Rabbit kep on gainin', en bimeby he dart in a briar patch, en by de time Miss Cow come 'long he had his head stickin' out, en his eyes looked big as Miss Sally's china saucers. "Heyo, Mrs. Cow, where you gwine?" sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Howdy, Brer Big Eyes," sez Miss Cow, sez she. "Is you seed Brer Rabbit go by?" "He just dis minute pass," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee, "en he look mighty sick," sezee. En wid dat, Miss Cow took down de road like de dogs wuz atter her, en Brer Rabbit he des lay down dar in de briar patch en roll en laugh twel his sides hurted him. He bleedzed ter laugh. Fox atter him, Buzzard atter him, en de cow atter him, en dey ain't kotch him yit. End of chapter.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 10 Mr. Terrapin Appears Upon the Scene. Miss Sally's little boy again occupying the anxious position of auditor, Uncle Remus took the shovel and "put de noses er de chunks toge'rr," as he expressed it, and then began: One day, atter Sis Cow done run pas' her own shadder tryin' fer ter ketch 'im, Brer Rabbit tuck'n 'lowed dat he wuz gwineter drap in en see Miss Meadows en de gals, en he got out his piece er lookin' glass en primp up, he did, en sot out. Gwine canterin' 'long de road, who should Brer Rabbit run up wid but ole Brer Tarrypin, de same ole 1 en sixpence. Brer Rabbit stop, he did, en rap on de roof er Brer Tarrypin's house. "On de roof of his house, Uncle Remus?" interrupted the little boy. "Co'se, honey, Brer Tarrypin carry his house wid 'im. Rain er shine, hot er col', strike up wid ole Brer Tarrypin w'en you will en w'ilst you may, en whar you find 'im, dar you'll find his shanty. Hit's des like I tell you. So den, Brer Rabbit, he rap on de roof er Brer Tarrypin's house, he did, en axt was he in, en Brer Tarrypin 'lowed dat he was, en den Brer Rabbit, he ax 'im howdy, en den Brer Tarrypin he likewise 'spon' howdy, en den Brer Rabbit he say where was Brer Tarrypin gwine, en Brer Tarrypin he say w'ich he weren't gwine nowhar skasely. Den Brer Rabbit 'low he wuz on his way fer ter see Miss Meadows en de gals, en he ax Brer Tarrypin ef he won't jine in en go 'long, en Brer Tarrypin 'spon' he don't keer ef he do, en den dey sot out. Dey had plenty er time fer confabbin' along de way, but bimeby dey got dar, en Miss Meadows en de gals dey come ter de do', dey did, en ax um in, en in dey went. W'en dey got in, Brer Tarrypin wuz so flat-footed dat he wuz too low on de floor, en he wa'n't high nuff in a cheer, en w'ile dey wuz all scramblin' 'roun' tryin' fer ter git Brer Tarrypin a cheer, Brer Rabbit, he pick 'im up en put 'im on de shelf whar de water bucket sot, en ole Brer Tarrypin he lay back up dar, he did, en des as proud as a nigger wid a cook possum. Co'se de talk fall on Brer Fox, en Miss Meadows en de gals make a great 'miration 'bout w'at a gaily ridin' hoss Brer Fox wuz, en dey make lots er fun, en laugh en giggle same like gals does deze days. Brer Rabbit, he sot dar in de cheer smokin' his seegyar, en he sorter cle'r up his throat en say, sezee, "I'd er rid 'im over dis mawnin, ladies," sezee, "but I rid 'im so hard yistiddy dat he went lame in de off fo' leg, en I speck I hatter swap 'im off yit," sezee. Den Brer Tarrypin he up en say, sezee, "Well, ef you gwineter sell 'im, Brer Rabbit," sezee, "sell 'im som'ers outer dis naberhood, kaze he done bin yer too long now," sezee. "No longer'n day 'fo' yistiddy," sezee, "Brer Fox pass me on de road, en w'at do you reckon he say?" sezee. "Law, Brer Tarrypin," said Miss Meadows, says she, "you don't mean ter say he cussed?" says she, en den de gals hilt der fans up 'fo' der faces. "Oh, no, ma'am," says Brer Tarrypin, sezee. "He didn't cuss, but he holler out, 'Heyo, stinkin' Jim,' sezee." "Oh, my! You hear dat, gals?" says Miss Meadows, says she. "Brer Fox call Brer Tarrypin Stinking Jim," says she, en den Miss Meadows en de gals make great wonderment how Brer Fox kin talk dat a way 'bout nice man like Brer Tarrypin. But bless gracious, honey, whilst all dis was gwine on, Brer Fox wuz stannin' at de back do' wid one ear at de cat hole listenin'. Eavesdrappers don't hear no good about demselves, en de way Brer Fox wuz 'bused dat day wuz a caution. Bimeby, Brer Fox stick his head in de do' en holler out,
"Good evenin', folks. I wish you mighty well," sezee, en wid dat he make a dash for Brer Rabbit. Miss Meadows en de gals, dey holler en squall, dey did, en Brer Tarrypin he got ter scramblin' 'roun' up dar on de shelf, en off he come, en blip! He tuck Brer Fox on de back er de head. Dis sorter stunted Brer Fox, en w'en he gedder his 'membunce, de most he seed wuz a pot er greens turned over in de fireplace, en a broke cheer. Brer Rabbit wuz gone, en Brer Tarrypin wuz gone, en Miss Meadows en de gals wuz gone.
"Where did the rabbit go, Uncle Remus?" the little boy asked, after a pause.
Bless yo' soul, honey, Brer Rabbit he skint up de chimbly. Dat's w'at tu'n de pot er greens over. Brer Tarrypin he crope under de bed, he did, en got behime de cloze chist, en Miss Meadows en de gals, dey run out in de yard. Brer Fox he sorter look 'roun' en feel at de back er his head, but Brer Tarrypin lit, but he don't see no sign er Brer Rabbit. But de smoke en de ashes gwine up de chimbly got de best er Brer Rabbit, en bimeby he sneeze, "Hooky chow!" "Aha!" sez Brer Fox, sezee. "You're dar, is you?" sezee. "Well, I'm gwineter smoke you out if'n it takes a month. You're mine dis time," sezee. Brer Rabbit he ain't sayin' nothin'. "Ain't you comin' down?" sez Brer Fox, sezee. Brer Rabbit ain't sayin' nothin'. Den Brer Fox he went out atter some wood, he did, en w'en he come back he hear Brer Rabbit laughin'. "W'at you laughin' at, Brer Rabbit?" sez Brer Fox, sezee. "Can't tell you, Brer Fox," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Better tell, Brer Rabbit," sez Brer Fox, sezee. "'Tain't nothin' but a box er money somebody done lef' up in here in de chink er de chimbly," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "I don't believe you," sez Brer Fox, sezee. "Look up en see," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. En w'en Brer Fox look up, Brer Rabbit spit his eyes fuller terbacker juice, he did, en Brer Fox he make a break for de branch, en Brer Rabbit he come down en tole de ladies good bye. "How you git 'im off, Brer Rabbit?" said Miss Meadows, sez she. "Who, me?" sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Why, I des tuck'n tole 'im dat ef he don't go 'long home en stop playin' his pranks on 'spectable folks, dat I'd take 'im out en thrash 'im," sezee.
"And what became of the Terrapin?" asked the little boy.
"Oh, well, den!" exclaimed the old man. "Chilluns can't 'speck know all 'bout eve'ything 'fo' dey git some res'. Dem eyelids er yone wanter be propped up wid straws dis minnit."
End of the tale. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 11. Mr. Wolf Makes a Failure.
"I lay yo' ma got company,"
said Uncle Remus, as the little boy entered the old man's door with a huge piece of mince pie in his hand.
"en ef she ain't got company, den she done gone en drap de cupboard key som'ers whar you done run up wid it."
"Well, I saw the pie lying there, Uncle Remus, and I just thought I'd fetch it out to you."
"Tooby sho, honey," replied the old man, regarding the child with admiration. "Tooby sho, honey. Dat changes marters. Chris'mus doin's is outer date, en dey ain't got no bizness layin' 'roun' loose. Dish yer pie," Uncle Remus continued, holding it up and measuring it with an experienced eye, "will gimme strenk fer ter persoo on atter Brer Fox en Brer Rabbit en de udder creeturs w'at dey roped in 'long wid um."
Here the old man paused and proceeded to demolish the pie, a feat accomplished in a very short time. Then he wiped the crumbs from his beard and began.
Brer Fox feel so bad, en he git so mad 'bout Brer Rabbit dat he dunner know w'at to do, en he look mighty downhearted. Bimeby, one day w'iles he wuz gwine 'long de road, ole Brer Wolf come up wid 'im. W'en dey done howdyin' en axin atter one anudder's family connection, Brer Wolf, he 'low, he did, dat der wuz sumpin' wrong wid Brer Fox, en Brer Fox, he 'lowed der weren't, en he went on en laugh en make great terdo kaze Brer Wolf look like he spishun sumpin'. But Brer Wolf, he got mighty long head, en he sorter broach 'roun' Brer Rabbit's carryin's on, kaze de way dat Brer Rabbit see Brer Fox done got ter be de talk er de neighborhood. Den Brer Fox en Brer Wolf, they sorter palavered on, dey did, twel bimeby Brer Wolf he up en say dat he done got plan fix fer ter trap Brer Rabbit, en Brer Fox say how. Den Brer Wolf up en tell 'im dat de way fer ter git de drap on ole Brer Rabbit wuz to git 'im in Brer Fox's house. Brer Fox done know Brer Rabbit of ole, en he know'd dat sorter game done Wolf to a frazzle, but Brer Wolf, he talk mighty persuadin'. "How you gwineter git 'im dar?" said Brer Fox, sezee. "Fool 'im dar," says Brer Wolf, sezee. "Who gwineter do de foolin'?" says Brer Fox, sezee. "I'll do de foolin'," says Brer Wolf, sezee, "ef you'll do de gamin'," sezee. "How you gwineter do it?" says Brer Fox, sezee. "You run 'long home en git on de bed en make like you dead, en don't you say nothin' twel Brer Rabbit come en put his han's onter you," says Brer Wolf, sezee. "En ef we don't git 'im fer supper, Joe's dead en Sal's a widder," sezee. Dis look like mighty nice game, en Brer Fox 'greed. So den he amble off home, en Brer Wolf he march off ter Brer Rabbit's house. W'en he got dar, hit look like nobody at home, but Brer Wolf he walk up en knock on de do'. Blam! Blam! Nobody come. Den he lam aloose en knock agin. Blim! Blim! "Who dar?" says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Frien'," says Brer Wolf. "Too many frien's spoils de dinner," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Which one's dis?" sezee. "I fetch bad news, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Wolf, sezee. "Bad news is soon tole," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. By dis time Brer Rabbit done come to de do' wid his head tied up in a red hanker. "Brer Fox died dis mornin'," said Brer Wolf, sezee. "Whar yo' mo'nin' gown, Brer Wolf?" says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Gwine atter it now," says Brer Wolf, sezee. "I des call by fer ter bring de news. I went down to Brer Fox's house little bit ago, en dar I foun' 'im stiff," sezee. Den Brer Wolf lope off. Brer Rabbit sot down en scratch his head, he did, en bimeby he say to hisse'f dat he b'leeve he sorter drap 'roun' by Brer Fox's house fer ter see how de lan' lay. No sooner said'n done. Up he jump en out he went. W'en Brer Rabbit got close to Brer Fox's house, all look lonesome. Den he went up nigher. Nobody stirrin'. Den he look in, en dar lay Brer Fox stretch out on de bed des big as life. Den Brer Rabbit make like he talkin' to hisse'f. "Nobody 'roun' fer ter look atter Brer Fox. Not even Brer Tukkey Buzzard ain't come fer de funeral," sezee. "I hope Brer Fox ain't dead. But I speck he is," sezee. "Even down to Brer Wolf done gone en lef 'im."
Hit's de busy season wid me, but I'll set up wid him. He seem like he dead. Yet he mayn't be,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'When a man go ter see de dead folks allus raise up der behine legs en hollers, "Wahoo!" sezee. Brer Fox, he lay still. Den Brer Rabbit, he talk little louder. Mighty funny. Brer Fox look like he dead, yet he don't do like he dead. Dead folks h'ist der behine leg en hollers, "Wahoo!" when a man come ter see 'im, sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. Sho nuff, Brer Fox lif' up de foot en holler, "Wahoo!" en Brer Rabbit he tear out'n de house like de dogs wuz atter 'im. Brer Wolf mighty smart, but nex' time you hear fum 'im, honey, he'll be in trouble. You des hol' yo' breff en wait. End of chapter.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Tale number 12. Mr. Fox Tackles Old Man Tarrypin. "One day," said Uncle Remus, sharpening his knife on the palm of his hand, "one day Brer Fox strike up wid Brer Tarrypin right in de middle er de big road. Brer Tarrypin done heerd him comin', en he 'low to himse'f dat he'd sorter keep one eye open. But Brer Fox wuz monst'us polite, en he open up de confab, he did, like he ain't see Brer Tarrypin sence de las' freshet. "'Heyo, Brer Tarrypin, whar you bin this long come short?' sez Brer Fox, sezee. "'Loungin' 'roun', Brer Fox, loungin' 'roun', sez Brer Tarrypin. "'You don't look sprucey like you did, Brer Tarrypin,' said Brer Fox, sezee. "'Loungin' 'roun' en sufferin', sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee. Den dey talk sorter run on like dis. "'W'at ail you, Brer Tarrypin? Yo' eye look mighty red,' said Brer Fox, sezee. "'Lor, Brer Fox, you dunner w'at trouble is. You ain't bin loungin' 'roun' en sufferin', sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee. "'Bofe eyes red, en you look like you mighty weak, Brer Tarrypin,' sez Brer Fox, sezee. "'Lor, Brer Fox, you dunner know w'at trouble is,' sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee. "'W'at ail you now, Brer Tarrypin?' sez Brer Fox, sezee. "'Tuck a walk de udder day, en a man come 'long en sot to feel de fire. Lor, Brer Fox, you dunner know w'at trouble is,' sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee. "'How you git out'n de fire, Brer Tarrypin?' sez Brer Fox, sezee. "'Sot en tuck it, Brer Fox,' sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee. "'Sot en tuck it, en de smoke sif in my eye en de fire scorch my back,' sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee. "'Likewise sit bun yo' tail off,' said Brer Fox, sezee. "'Oh, no, dar's de tail, Brer Fox,' sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee, en wid dat he uncurl his tail fum under de shell, en no sooner dan he do dat dan Brer Fox grab it en holler out: "'Oh, yes, Brer Tarrypin, oh, yes, en so you er de man w'at lam me on de head at Miss Meadows, is you? You er in wid Brer Rabbit, is you? Well, I'm gwineter out you.' Brer Tarrypin beg en beg, but 'twa'n't no use. Brer Fox done bin fool so much dat he look like he 'terminin' fer ter have Brer Tarrypin haslett. Den Brer Tarrypin beg Brer Fox not fer ter drown 'im, but Brer Fox ain't makin' no promise, en den he beg Brer Fox fer ter bun 'im, 'kaze he done use ter fire, but Brer Fox don't say nothin'. Bimeby, Brer Fox drag Brer Tarrypin off a little ways below de spring house,
en souse 'im under de water. Den Brer Tarrypin begin fer to holler: "Tu'n loose dat stump root en catch holder me! Tu'n loose dat stump root en catch holder me!" Brer Fox, he holler back: "I ain't got holt no stump root, en I is got holt er you." Brer Tarrypin, he keep on hollerin': "Ketch holt er me! I'm a drownin'! I'm a drownin'! Tu'n loose de stump root en ketch holt er me!" Sho nuff, Brer Fox tu'n loose de tail, en Brer Tarrypin, he went down to de bottom. Kerblunkity blink! No typographical combination or description could do justice to the guttural sonorousness, the peculiar intonation, which Uncle Remus imparted to this combination. It was so peculiar, indeed, that the little boy asked, "How did he go to the bottom, Uncle Remus?" "Kerblunkity blink!" "Was he drowned, Uncle Remus?" "Who? Ole man Tarrypin? Is you drownded w'en yo' ma tucks you in de bed?" "Well, no," replied the little boy, dubiously. "Ole man Tarrypin wuz at home, I tell you, honey. Kerblinkity blunk!" End of the tale. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 13. The Awful Fate of Mr. Wolf. Uncle Remus was half soling one of his shoes, and his Miss Sally's little boy had been handling his awls, his hammers, and his knives to such an extent that the old man was compelled to assume a threatening attitude. But peace reigned again, and the little boy perched himself on a chair, watching Uncle Remus driving in pegs. "Folks w'at's allers pesterin' people en bodderin' longer dat w'at ain't dern don't never come to no good een'. Dar wuz Brer Wolf, stidder mindin' his own bizness, he hatter take en go in pardnerships wid Brer Fox, en dey wa'n't skasely a minnit in de day dat dey wa'n't atter Brer Rabbit, en he kep on twel fus news you knowed he got kotch up wid, en he got kotch up with monstus bad. Goodness, Uncle Remus! I thought the wolf let the rabbit alone after he tried to fool him about the fox being dead." "Better lemme tell dish yer my way. Bimeby hit'll be yo' bedtime, en Miss Sally be hollerin' atter you, en you'll be a wimplin' 'roun', en den Mars John'll fetch up wid de rear wid dat er strop w'at I made fer 'im." The child laughed, and playfully shook his fist in the simple, serious face of the venerable old darkey, but said no more. Uncle Remus waited a while to be sure there was to be no other demonstration, and then proceeded. "Brer Rabbit ain't see no peace w'atsomever. He can't leave home 'cep Brer Wolf 'ud make a raid en tote off some er his fambly. Brer Rabbit built 'im a straw house, en hit wuz tored down. Den he made a house out'n pine tops, en dat went de same way. Den he made 'im a bark house, en dat wuz raided on, en eve'y time he los' a house, he los' one er his chilluns. Las' Brer Rabbit got mad, he did, en cusst, en den he went off, he did, en got some carpenters, en dey built 'im a plank house wid rock foundations. Atter dat, he could have some peace en quietness. He could go out en pass de time er day wid his neighbors, en come back en set by de fire, en smoke his pipe, en read de newspapers same like any man w'at got a fambly. He made a hole, he did, in de cellar whar de little rabbits could hide out w'en der wuz much uv a racket in de neighborhood, en de latch er de front do' kotch on de inside. Brer Wolf, he see how de lan' lay, he did, en he lay low. De little rabbits wuz mighty skittish, but it got so dat
Cold chills ain't run up Brer Rabbit's back no mo' when he heard Brer Wolf go gallopin' by. Bimeby, one day when Brer Rabbit was fixin' fer to call on Miss Coon, he heerd a monstrous fuss en clatter up de big road, en mos' 'fo' he could fix his years fer ter lissen, Brer Wolf run in de do'. De little rabbits, dey went inter de hole in de cellar, dey did, like blowin' out a cannle. Brer Wolf was far'ly kivered wid mud, en mighty nigh outer win'.
"Oh, do pray save me, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Wolf, sezee. "Do please, Brer Rabbit. De dogs is after me, en dey'll tear me up. Don't you year um comin'? Oh, do please save me, Brer Rabbit. Hide me somewheres where de dogs won't git me."
No quicker said than done. "Jump in dat big chist dar, Brer Wolf," said Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Jump in dar en make yo'se'f at home." In jump Brer Wolf, down come de lid, and inter de house went de hook, and dar Mr. Wolf was. Den Brer Rabbit went to de lookin' glass, he did, en wink at hisse'f, en den he drawed de rockin' cheer in front of de fire, he did, en tuck a big chaw er terbacker. "Tobacco, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy incredulously. "Rabbit terbacker, honey. You know dish yer life everlastin' w'at Miss Sally puts 'mong de cloze in de trunk? Well, dat's rabbit terbacker. Den Brer Rabbit sot dar long time, he did, turnin' his mine over en workin' his thinkin' machine. Bimeby he got up en sorter stir 'roun'. Den Brer Wolf open up. "Is de dogs all gone, Brer Rabbit?" "Seem like I hear one un um smellin' roun' de chimbly cornder des now." Den Brer Rabbit git de kittle en fill it full er water, en put it on de fire.
"What are you doing now, Brer Rabbit?"
"I'm fixin' fer ter make you a nice cup er tea, Brer Wolf." Den Brer Rabbit went to de cupboard en git de gimlet, en commence fer ter bore little holes in de chist lid.
"What you doing now, Brer Rabbit?"
"I'm borin' little holes so you kin git breff, Brer Wolf." Den Brer Rabbit went out en git some mo' wood en fling it on de fire.
"What are you doing now, Brer Rabbit?"
"I'm a chunkin' up de fire so you won't git cold, Brer Wolf." Den Brer Rabbit went down inter de cellar en fotch out all his chilluns.
"What you doing now, Brer Rabbit?"
"I'm a tellin' my chilluns w'at a nice man you is, Brer Wolf." En de chilluns, dey had to put der han's on der moufs fer ter keep fum laughin'. Den Brer Rabbit, he got de kittle en commence fer ter pour de hot water on de chist lid.
"What dat I hear, Brer Rabbit?"
"You hear de win' a blowin', Brer Wolf." Den de water begin fer ter sift thoo.
"What dat I feel, Brer Rabbit?"
"You feels de fleas a bitin', Brer Wolf."
"Dey bitin' mighty hard, Brer Rabbit."
"Turn over on de udder side, Brer Wolf."
"What dat I feel now, Brer Rabbit?"
"Still you feels de fleas, Brer Wolf."
"Dey eatin' me up, Brer Rabbit," en dem wuz de las' words of Brer Wolf, kaze de scaldin' water done de bizness. Den Brer Rabbit call in his neighbors, he did, en dey hilt a reg'lar juberlee. En ef you go to Brer Rabbit's house right now, I dunno but what you'll find Brer Wolf's hide hangin' in de back po'ch, en all because he wuz so busy wid udder folkses doin's.
End of chapter.
This here's a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 14, Mr. Fox and the Deceitful Frogs.
When the little boy ran in to see Uncle Remus the night after he'd been told of the awful fate of Brer Wolf, the only response to his greeting was,
"I do murker come murker."
No explanation could convey an adequate idea of the intonation and pronunciation which Uncle Remus brought to bear upon this wonderful word. Those who can recall to mind the peculiar gurgling, jerking, liquid sound made by pouring water from a large jug, or the sound produced by throwing several stones in rapid succession into a pond of deep water, may be able to form a very faint idea of the sound, but it cannot be reproduced in print. The little boy was astonished. "What did you say, Uncle Remus?"
I do merker come merker. I do merker come merker.
"What's that?"
Dat's Terrapin talk, dat is. Bless yo' soul, honey," continued the old man, brightening up, "w'en you git ole ez me, w'en you see w'at I sees, en year w'at I years, de creeturs dat you can't talk wid'll be mighty skase. Dey will dat. Why, dere's de ole gray rat w'at uses 'bout yer, en time atter time he come out w'en you all done gone ter bed, en sets up dar in de cornder en dozes, en me en him talks by de hour, en w'at dat ole rat dunno ain't down in de spellin' book. Des now, w'en you run in en broke me up, I wuz fetchin' inter my min' w'at Brer Tarrypin say to Brer Fox w'en he turn 'im loose in de branch."
"What did he say, Uncle Remus?"
Dat w'at he said. I do merker come merker. Brer Tarrypin was at de bottom er de pond, en he talk back, he did, in bubbles. I do merker come merker. Brer Fox he ain't sayin' nothin', but Brer Bullfrog, settin' on de bank, he hear Brer Tarrypin, he did, en he holler back, "Jug er rum come dum! Jug er rum come dum!" Den Brer Frog holler out, "Knee deep, knee deep." Den ole Brer Bullfrog, he holler back, "Don't you believe him! Don't you believe him!" Den de bubbles come up from Brer Tarrypin. I do merker come merker. Den Brer Frog sing out, "Wadin', wadin'." Den ole Brer Bullfrog talk through his hoarseness, "Dar you'll find your brudder, dar you'll find your brudder." Sho nuff, Brer Fox look over de bank, he did, en der wuz anudder fox lookin' at 'im outer de water. Den he retch out fer ter shake hands, en in he went, heels over head, en Brer Tarrypin bubble out, "I do merker come merker."
"Was the fox drowned, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy.
"He weren't zackly drownded, honey," replied the old man, with an air of cautious reserve. "He did manage fer ter scramble out, but a little mo' en de mud turkle would er got 'im, en den he'd er bin made hash a world widout end."
End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 15. Mr. Fox goes a hunting, but Mr. Rabbit backs the game.
"Atter Brer Fox hear 'bout how Brer Rabbit done Brer Wolf,"
said Uncle Remus, scratching his head with the point of his awl,
"he 'low, he did, dat he better not be so brash, en he sorter let Brer Rabbit alone. Dey wuz all times seein' one anudder, en abundance of times Brer Fox could er nab Brer Rabbit, but eve'y time he got de chance, his mind 'ud sorter resume 'bout Brer Wolf, en he'd let Brer Rabbit 'lone. Bimeby dey 'gun ter git kinder familious wid one anudder like dey useter, en it got so Brer Fox 'ud call on Brer Rabbit, en dey'd set up en smoke der pipes, dey would, like no hosh feelin's ever rested 'twixt um. Las', one day Brer Fox come 'long all rig out, en ax Brer Rabbit fer ter go huntin' wid 'im, but Brer Rabbit
he sorter feel lazy, en he tell Brer Fox dat he got some udder fish fer ter fry. Brer Fox feel mighty sorry, he did, but he say he b'leeve he'd try his han' anyhow, en off he put. He wuz gone all day, en he had a monst'us streak er luck, Brer Fox did, en he bagged a sight er game. Bimeby, to'rds de shank er de evenin', Brer Rabbit sorter stretch himse'f, he did, en 'low hit's mos' time fer Brer Fox fer ter git 'long home. Den Brer Rabbit, he went en mounted a stump fer ter see ef he could year Brer Fox comin'. He ain't bin dar long, twel sure nuff, here come Brer Fox thoo de woods, singin' like a nigger at a frolic. Brer Rabbit, he lipt down off'n de stump, he did, en lay down in de road en make like he dead. Brer Fox, he come along, he did, en see Brer Rabbit lyin' dar. He turn 'im over, he did, en 'zamine 'im, en say, sezee, "Dish yer rabbit's dead. He look like he bin dead long time. He dead, but he mighty fat. He de fattest rabbit w'at I ever see. But he bin dead too long. I fear'd to take him home," sezee. Brer Rabbit ain't sayin' nothin'. Brer Fox, he sorter lick his chops, but he went on en lef Brer Rabbit layin' in de road. Dreckly he wuz outer sight, Brer Rabbit, he jump up, he did, en run 'roun' thoo de woods en git befo' Brer Fox agin. Brer Fox, he come up, en dar lay Brer Rabbit, 'periently cole en stiff. Brer Fox, he look at Brer Rabbit, en he sorter study. Atter w'ile he unslung his game bag, en say to hisse'f, sezee, "Deze yer rabbits gwine ter waste. I'll des 'bout leave my game yer, en I'll go back en git dat udder rabbit, en I'll make folks b'leeve dat I'm ole man Hunter fum Huntsville," sezee. En wid dat he drapped his game en loped back up de road atter de udder rabbit, but w'en he got outer sight, ole Brer Rabbit, he snatch up Brer Fox's game en put out fer home. Nex' time he see Brer Fox, he holler out, "W'at you kill de udder day, Brer Fox?" sezee. Den Brer Fox, he sorter comb his flank wid his tongue en holler back, "I cotch a handful er hard sense, Brer Rabbit," sezee. Den ole Brer Rabbit, he laugh, he did, en up en 'spon', sezee, "Ef I'd er knowed you wuz atter dat, Brer Fox, I'd er loant you some er mine," sezee. End of chapter.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 16. Old Mr. Rabbit, he's a good fisherman.
Brer Rabbit en Brer Fox wuz like some chillun w'at I knows of,"
said Uncle Remus, regarding the little boy, who had come to hear another story with an affectation of great solemnity.
"Bofe un um alwuz wuz atter one anudder, en prankin' en a pesterin' 'roun'. But Brer Rabbit did have some peace, 'kaze Brer Fox done got skittish 'bout puttin' de clamps on Brer Rabbit. One day, w'en Brer Rabbit en Brer Fox en Brer Coon en Brer B'ar en a whole lot of um wuz clearin' up a new groun' fer ter plant a roas'n year patch, de sun 'gun ter git sorter hot, en Brer Rabbit he got tired, but he didn't let on, 'kaze he fear'd de balance un um would call 'im lazy, en he keep on totin' off trash en pilin' up bresh, twel bimeby he holler out dat he got a brier in his han', en den he take'n slip off en hunt fer a cool place fer to rest. Atter w'ile he come 'crost a well wid a bucket hangin' in it. "Dat look cool," said Brer Rabbit, sezee, "en cool I speck she is. I des 'bout git in dar en take a nap," en wid dat he jump he did, and no sooner fix himself than de bucket gun to go down."
Wasn't the rabbit scared, Uncle Remus? Asked the little boy.
Honey, dey ain't been no wusser skeered beast sence de world begin dan dish yer same Brer Rabbit. He fairly had an agur. He know whar he come fum, but he dunner whar he goin'. Dreckly he feel de bucket hit de water, en dar she sot. But Brer Rabbit he keep mighty still, kaze he dunner w'at minnit gwineter be his next. He des lay dar en shuck en shiver. Brer Fox always got one eye on Brer Rabbit, en w'en he slip off fum de new ground, Brer Fox he sneak atter 'im. He know Brer Rabbit was atter some project er nudder, en he tuck'n crope off, he did, en watch 'im. Brer Fox see Brer Rabbit come to de well en stop, en den he see 'im jump in de bucket, en den, lo en beholds, he see 'im go down outer sight. Brer Fox was de most 'stonished fox dat you ever laid eyes on. He sot dar in de bushes en study en study, but he don't make no head ner tails ter this kinder business. Den he say to hisse'f, sezee, "Well, ef this don't bang my times," sezee, "den Joe's dead en Sal's a widder. Right down dar in dat well Brer Rabbit keep his money hid, en ef 'tain't dat, den he gone en skivered a gold mine, en ef 'tain't dat, den I'm a gwineter see w'at's in dar," sezee. Brer Fox crope up little nigher, he did, en lissen, but he don't hear no fuss, en he keep on gittin' nigher, en yit he don't year nothin'. Bimeby he git up close en peep down, en he don't see nothin', en he don't hear nothin'. All dis time Brer Rabbit mighty nigh skeered out'n his skin, en he fear'd fer to move kaze the bucket might keel over en spill him out in the water. W'ile he was sayin' his prayers over like a train er cars comin', ole Brer Fox holler out, "Heyo, Brer Rabbit! W'at you visitin' down dar?" sezee. "Who, me? Oh, I'm just a fishin', Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "I des say to myse'f dat I'd sorter s'prise you all wid a mess er fishes for dinner, en so here I is, en dar's de fishes. I'm a fishin' for suckers, Brer Fox," says Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Is dey many un um down dar, Brer Rabbit?" says Brer Fox, sezee. "Oh, lots un um, Brer Fox. Schools en schools un um. De water is nat'ally 'live wid um. Come on down en help me haul um out, Brer Fox," said Brer Rabbit, sezee. "How am I gwineter git down, Brer Rabbit?" "Jump into de bucket, Brer Fox. Hit'll fetch you down all safe en soun'." Brer Rabbit talk so happy en talk so sweet dat Brer Fox he jump in de bucket, he did, en ez he went down, co'se his weight pull Brer Rabbit up. W'en dey pass one anudder on de half way growl, Brer Rabbit he sing out, "Goodbye, Brer Fox, take keer yo' clothes, for dis is de way de world goes. Some goes up en some goes down. You'll get to de bottom all safe en soun'." When Brer Rabbit got out, he gallop off en tole de folks w'at de well b'longed ter dat Brer Fox was down in dar muddying up der drinkin' water, en den he gallop back to de well en holler down to Brer Fox, "Here come a man wid a great big gun. W'en he haul you up, you jump en run." "What then, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy as the old man paused. "In des 'bout half an hour, honey, bofe un um wuz back in de new groun' wukkin' des like dey never heerd er no well, 'ceppin' dat eve'y now en den Brer Rabbit bust out en laugh, en ole Brer Fox he git a speller de dry grins. End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.
This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 17. Mr. Rabbit nibbles up the butter. "De animals and de creeturs," said Uncle Remus, shaking his coffee around in the bottom of his tin cup in order to gather up all the sugar, "dey kep on gittin' mo' en mo' familious wid one anudder, twel bimeby 'twasn't long 'fo' Brer Rabbit en Brer Fox en Brer Possum got ter sorter bunchin' der perwissions tergedder in de same shanty. Atter a w'ile de roof sorter gun ter leak, en one day Brer Rabbit en Brer Fox en Brer Possum they 'semble for ter see ef dey can't kinder patch her up. Dey had a big day's wuk in front un um, en dey fotched der dinner wid um. Dey lumped de vittles up in one pile, en de butter w'at Brer Fox brung dey goes en puts in de spring house fer ter keep cool, en den dey went ter wuk, en 'twa'n't long 'fo' Brer Rabbit's stomach begun sorter growl en pester 'im. Dat butter Brer Fox sot heavy on his mind, en his mouf water eve'y time he 'member 'bout it. Present'y he say to himse'f dat he bleedz ter have a nip at dat der butter, en den he lay his plans, he did. Fus news you know, w'ile dey wuz all wuckin' along, Brer Rabbit raise his head quick en fling his years forrerd en holler out, 'Here I is! W'at you want wid me?' En off he put like sump'n wuz atter 'im. He sallied 'roun', ole Brer Rabbit did, en atter he make shore dat nobody ain't follerin' 'im, inter de spring house he bounces, en dar he stays twel he git a bait er butter. Den he santer on back en go ter wuk. "'Whar you bin?' said Brer Fox, sezee. "'I hear my chilluns callin' me,' said Brer Rabbit, sezee, 'en I hatter go see w'at dey want. My ole 'oman done got um tuck mighty sick,' sezee. "Dey wuk on twel bimeby de butter tas'e so good dat ole Brer Rabbit want some mo'. Den he raise up his head, he did, en holler out, 'Hey yo! Hol' on! I'm comin'!' En off he put. Dis time he stay right smart w'ile, en w'en he git back, Brer Fox ax 'im whar he bin. "'I bin ter see my ole 'oman, en she's a sinkin',' sezee. Dreckly Brer Rabbit hear 'im callin' 'im agin, en off he goes, en dis time, bless yo' soul, he gits de butter out so clean dat he kin see hisse'f in de bottom er de bucket. He scrape it clean en lick it dry, en den he go back ter wuk lookin' mo' sammer dan a nigger w'at de patrollers had a holt on. "'How's yo' ole 'oman dis time?' said Brer Fox, sezee. "'I'm 'bliged to you, Brer Fox,' says Brer Rabbit, sezee, 'but I'm fear'd she's done gone by now,' en dat sorter make Brer Fox en Brer Possum feelin' moanin' wid Brer Rabbit. Bimeby, w'en dinner time come, dey all got out der vittles, but Brer Rabbit keep on lookin' lonesome, en Brer Fox en Brer Possum dey sorter rustle 'roun' fer ter see ef they can't make Brer Rabbit feel sorter splimmy. "'What's that, Uncle Remus?' asked the little boy. "'Sorter splimmy splammy, honey. Sorter like he in a crowd. Sorter like his ole 'oman ain't dead ez she might be. You know how folks does w'en dey gits whar people's a moanin'.' The little boy didn't know, fortunately for him, and Uncle Remus went on. "Brer Fox en Brer Possum rustle 'roun', dey did, gittin' out de vittles, en bimeby Brer Fox he say, sezee, 'Brer Possum, you run down to de spring en fetch de butter, en I'll sail 'roun' yer en set de table,' sezee. Brer Possum, he lope off atter de butter, en dreckly here he come lopin' back wid his years a trimblin' en his tongue a hangin' out. Brer Fox, he holler out, 'W'at de matter now, Brer Possum?' sezee. "'You all better run yer, folks,' says Brer Possum, sezee. 'De las' drop er dat butter done gone.' "'Whar she gone?' said Brer Fox, sezee. "'Look like she dry up,' said Brer Possum, sezee. Den Brer Rabbit, he look sorter sollum, he did, en he up en say, sezee,
I speck dat butter melt in somebody mouf,' sezee. Den dey went down to de spring wid Brer Possum, en sho nuff de butter done gone. W'iles dey wuz 'sputin' over dat wonderment, Brer Rabbit say he see tracks all 'roun' dar, en he point out dat ef dey'll all go ter sleep he kin catch de chap w'at stole de butter. Den dey all lie down, en Brer Fox en Brer Possum dey soon drapt off ter sleep. But Brer Rabbit he stay wake, en w'en de time come he raise up easy en smear Brer Possum mouf wid de butter on his paws, en den he run off en nibble up de best er de dinner w'at dey lef layin' out. En den he come back en wake up Brer Fox, en show 'im de butter on Brer Possum mouf. Den dey wake up Brer Possum en tell 'im 'bout it, but co'se Brer Possum's denyin' it to de last. Brer Fox, dough, he's a kinder lawyer, en he argyfied dis way, dat Brer Possum wuz de fus one at de butter, en de fus one fer ter miss it, en mo'n dat, dar hang de signs on his mouf. Brer Possum see dat dey got 'im jammed up in a cornder, en den he up en say dat de way fer ter catch de man w'at stole de butter is to build a big bresh heap en set her afire, en all hands try to jump over, en de one w'at fall in, den he de chap w'at stole de butter. Brer Rabbit en Brer Fox dey is bofe agreed, dey did, en dey whirl en dey build dat bresh heap, en dey build her high en dey build her wide, en den dey totch her off. W'en she got ter blazin' up good, Brer Rabbit, he tuck de fus turn. He sorter step back, en look 'roun' en giggle, en over he went mo' samer dan a bird flyin'. Den come Brer Fox. He got back a little fudder, en spit on his hands, en lit out en made de jump, en he come so nigh gittin' in dat de end er his tail kotch fire. Ain't you never seen no fox, honey?" inquired Uncle Remus in a tone that implied both conciliation and information. The little boy thought probably he had, but he wouldn't commit himself. "Well, den," continued the old man, "nex' time you see one un um, you look right close en see ef de een' er his tail ain't white. It's des like I tell you. Dey b'ars de scar dat bresh heap down ter dis day. Dey er marked, dat's w'at dey is. Dey er marked." "And what about Brother Possum?" asked the little boy. "Ole Brer Possum, he tuck a runnin' start, he did, en he come lumberin' along, en he lit kerblam right in de middle er dat fire, en dat wuz de last er ole Brer Possum." "But Uncle Remus, Brother Possum didn't steal the butter after all," said the little boy, who was not at all satisfied with such summary injustice. "Dat w'at make I say w'at I does, honey. In dis world lots er folks is gotter suffer for de udder folks sins. Look like it's mighty wrong, but it's dat way. Tribbilations seem like she's a waitin' 'roun' de cornder fer ter catch one en all of us, honey." End of chapter.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 18. Mr. Rabbit finds his match at last. "Hit look like ter me dat I let on de udder night dat in dem days w'en de creeturs wuz santerin' 'roun' same like folks, none un um wuz brash enough fer ter ketch up wid Brer Rabbit," remarked Uncle Remus reflectively. "Yes," replied the little boy, "that's what you said." "Well, den," continued the old man with unction, "dar's whar my 'membunce git out, kaze Brer Rabbit did git kotched up wid, en hit cool 'im off like po'in' spring water on one er deze yer biggity fices." "How was that, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy.
One day, when Brer Rabbit was gwine lippity-clippitin' down de road, he meet up wid ole Brer Tarrypin, en atter dey pass de time er day wid one anudder, Brer Rabbit, he 'low dat he wuz much 'bliged to Brer Tarrypin for de han' he tuck in de rumpus dat dey had down at Miss Meadows's. "When he dropped off of the water shelf on the Fox's head," suggested the little boy. "Dat's de same time, honey. Den Brer Tarrypin 'low dat Brer Fox run mighty fas' dat day, but dat ef he'd had been atter 'im instidder Brer Rabbit, he'd er kotch 'im. Brer Rabbit say he could er kotch 'im hisse'f, but he didn't keer 'bout leavin' de ladies. Dey keep on talkin', dey did, twel bimeby dey got a 'sputin' 'bout which wuz de swiffest. Brer Rabbit, he say he kin outrun Brer Tarrypin, en Brer Tarrypin, he des vow dat he kin outrun Brer Rabbit. En up en down dey had it, twel fus news you know, Brer Tarrypin say he got a $50 bill in de chink er de chimbly at home, en dat bill done tole him dat he could beat Brer Rabbit in a fa'r race. Den Brer Rabbit say he got a $50 bill w'at say dat he kin leave Brer Tarrypin so fur behime dat he could sow barley ez he went along en it'd be ripe enough fer ter cut by de time Brer Tarrypin pass dat way. Ennyhow, dey make de bet, en he put up de money, en ole Brer Tukkey Buzzard, he wuz summoned fer ter be de judge en de stakeholder. En 'twa'n't long 'fo' all de 'rangements wuz made. De race wuz a 5-mile heat, en de groun' wuz measured off, en at de een' er eve'y mile a pos' wuz stuck up. Brer Rabbit wuz to run down de big road, en Brer Tarrypin, he say he gallop thoo de woods. Folks tole 'im he could git 'long faster in de road, but ole Brer Tarrypin, he know w'at he doin'. Miss Meadows en de gals, en most all the neighbors, got wind er de fun, en w'en de day wuz sot dey 'termin' fer ter be on han'. Brer Rabbit, he train hisse'f eve'y day, en he skip over de groun' des ez gaily ez a June cricket. Ole Brer Tarrypin, he lay low in de swamp. He had a wife en 3 chilluns, ole Brer Tarrypin did, en dey wuz all de ve'y spittin' image er de ole man. Anybody w'at know one fum de udder gotter take a spy glass, en den dey liable fer ter git fooled. Dat's de way marters stan twel de day er de race, en on dat day ole Brer Tarrypin en his ole 'oman en his 3 chilluns, dey got up 'fo' sun up en went ter de place. De ole 'oman, she tuck her stan' nigh de fus milepost, she did, en de chilluns nigh de udders, up ter de last, en dar ole Brer Tarrypin he tuck his stan'. Bimeby, here come de folks. Judge Buzzard, he come, en Miss Meadows en de gals, dey come, en den yer come Brer Rabbit wid ribbons tied roun' his neck en streamin' from his ears. De folks all went to de udder een' er de track fer ter see how dey come out. W'en de time come, Judge Buzzard strut roun' en pull out his watch en holler out, "Gents, is you ready?" Brer Rabbit, he say, "Yes," en ole Miss Tarrypin holler, "Go!" from de edge er de woods. Brer Rabbit, he lit out on de race, en ole Miss Tarrypin, she put out fer home. Judge Buzzard, he riz en skimmed along fer ter see dat de race wuz run fa'r. W'en Brer Rabbit got to de fus milepost, one er de Tarrypin chilluns crawl out er de woods, he did, en make fer de place. Brer Rabbit, he holler out, "Whar's you, Brer Tarrypin?" "Here I come a bulgin'," sez de Tarrypin, sezee. Brer Rabbit so glad he's ahead dat he put out harder dan ever, en de Tarrypin, he make fer home. W'en he come ter de nex' post, anudder Tarrypin crawl out'n de woods. "'Whar is you, Brer Tarrypin?' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "'Yer I come a bilin',' sez de Tarrypin, sezee. Brer Rabbit, he lit out, he did, en come ter de nex' post, en dar wuz anudder Tarrypin. Den he come ter de nex', en dar wuz a Tarrypin. Den he had one mo' mile fer ter run, en he feel like he gittin' bullust. Bimeby, ole Brer Tarrypin look way off down de road, en he see Jedge Buzzard sailin' long, en he know hit's time fer him ter be up. So he scramble outer de woods, en roll 'cross de ditch, en shuffle thoo de crowd er folks, en git ter de mile post en crawl behime it. Bimeby, fus news you know, yer comes Brer Rabbit. He look 'roun', he don't see Brer Tarrypin, en den he squall out, "Gimme de money, Brer Buzzard! Gimme de money!" Den Miss Meadows en de gals, dey holler en laugh fit ter kill demselves, en ole Brer Tarrypin, he raise up fum behime de post en sezee, "Ef you gimme time fer ter ketch my breff, gents en ladies, one en all, I speck I'll finger dat money myse'f," sezee, en sho nuff, Brer Tarrypin tie de purse 'roun' his neck en skedaddle off home. "But, Uncle Remus," said the little boy, dolefully, "that was cheating." "Co'se, honey. De creeturs 'gun ter cheat, en de folks tuck it up, en hit keep on spreadin'. Hit mighty ketchin', en you min' yo' eye, honey, dat somebody don't cheat you 'fo' yo' ha'r git gray ez dis ole nigger's." End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 19. The Fate of Mr. Jack Sparrow. "You'll tromple on dat bark twel it won't be fittin' fer ter fling away, let 'lone make hoss collars out'n," said Uncle Remus, as the little boy came running into his cabin out of the rain. All over the floor long strips of wahoo bark were spread, and these the old man was weaving into horse collars. "I'll sit down, Uncle Remus," said the little boy. "Well, den, you better, honey," responded the old man, "kaze I despises fer ter have my wahoo trompled on. Ef 'twuz shucks, now, hit might be diffunt, but I'm a gittin' too ole fer ter be projictin' longer shuck collars." For a few minutes the old man went on with his work, but with a solemn air altogether unusual. Once or twice he sighed deeply, and the sighs ended in a prolonged groan that seemed to the little boy to be the result of the most unspeakable mental agony. He knew by experience that he had done something which failed to meet the approval of Uncle Remus, and he tried to remember what it was, so as to frame an excuse, but his memory failed him. He could think of nothing he had done calculated to stir Uncle Remus's grief. He was not exactly seized with remorse, but he was very uneasy. Presently Uncle Remus looked at him in a sad and hopeless way and asked: "What dat long rigmarole you bin tellin' Miss Sally 'bout yo' little brer this mornin'?" "Which, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy, blushing guiltily. "Dat des w'at I's askin' un you now. I hear Miss Sally say she's a gwineter stripe his jacket, en den I knowed you bin tellin' on 'im." "Well, Uncle Remus, he was pulling up your onions, and then he went and flung a rock at me," said the child, plaintively. "Lemme tell you dis," said the old man, laying down the section of horse collar he had been plaiting, and looking hard at the little boy. "Lemme tell you dis, dat der ain't no way for ter make tattlers and tale bearers turn out good. No, dey ain't. I been mixin' up wid folks now gwine on 80 year, en I ain't seed no tattler come to no good een'. Dat I ain't. En ef ole man Methusalem wuz livin' clean 12 yit, he'd up en tell you de same. Sho ez you er settin' dar. You 'member w'at come er de bird w'at went a tattlin' 'roun' 'bout Brer Rabbit?" The little boy didn't remember, but he was very anxious to know, and he also wanted to know what kind of a bird it was that so disgraced itself. "Hit wuz one er deze yer uppity little Jack Sparrers, I speck," said the old man. "Dey wuz allers bodderin' 'longer udder people's business, en dey keeps at it down to dis day, peckin' yer, pickin' dar, scratchin' out yonder. One day, atter he been fool by ole Brer Tarrypin, Brer Rabbit wuz settin' down in de woods studyin' how he wuz gwineter git even. He feel mighty lonesome, en he feel mighty bad, Brer Rabbit did. 'Tain't put down in de tale, but I speck he cussed en r'ar'd 'roun' consid'ble. Leas'ways, he wuz settin' out dar by himse'f, en dar he sot, en study, en study, twel bimeby he jump out en holler out, 'Well, doggone my cats ef I can't gallop 'roun' ole Brer Fox, en I'm gwineter do it. I'll show Miss Meadows en de gals dat I'm a boss er Brer Fox,' sezee. Jack Sparrer up in de tree, he hear Brer Rabbit, he did, en he sing out, 'I'm gwineter tell Brer Fox, I'm gwineter tell Brer Fox. Chickabiddy wind a blowin' acorns fallin', I'm gwineter tell Brer Fox.'" Uncle Remus accompanied the speech of the bird with a peculiar whistling sound in his throat that was a marvelous imitation of a sparrow's chirp, and the little boy clapped his hands with delight and insisted on a repetition. "Dis kinder tarrify Brer Rabbit, en he skasely know w'at he gwine do. But bimeby he study to hisse'f dat de man w'at see Brer Fox fus wuz boun to have de inturn, en den he go hoppin' off to'rds home. He didn't get fur w'en who should he meet but Brer Fox, en den Brer Rabbit he open up. "'W'at dis 'twix' you en me, Brer Fox?' said Brer Rabbit, sezee. 'I hear tell you gwine ter sen' me ter destruction, en nab my fambly, en 'stroy my shanty,' sezee. Den Brer Fox he git mighty mad. 'Who bin tellin' you all dis?' sezee. Brer Rabbit make like he didn't want ter tell, but Brer Fox he insist en insist, twel at las' Brer Rabbit he up en tell Brer Fox dat he hear Jack Sparrer say all dis. "'Co'se,' said Brer Rabbit, sezee, 'when Brer Jack Sparrer tell me dat I flew up, I did, en I use some language w'at I'm mighty glad der wa'n't no ladies 'roun' nowhars, so dey could hear me go on,' sezee. Brer Fox he sorter gap, he did, en say he speck he better be saunterin' on. But bless yo' soul, honey, Brer Fox ain't saunter fur, 'fo' Jack Sparrer flip down on a 'simmon bush by de side er de road en holler out, 'Brer Fox! Oh, Brer Fox! Brer Fox!' Brer Fox he des sorter canter long, he did, en make like he don't hear 'im. Den Jack Sparrer up en sing out agin, 'Brer Fox! Oh, Brer Fox! Hol' on, Brer Fox! I got some news fer you. Wait, Brer Fox, hit'll 'stonish you.' Brer Fox he make like he don't see Jack Sparrer, en needer do he hear 'im, but bimeby he lay down by de road en sorter stretch hisse'f like he fixin' fer ter nap. De tattlin' Jack Sparrer he flew long en kep on callin' Brer Fox, but Brer Fox he ain't sayin' nothin'. Den little Jack Sparrer he hop down on de groun' en flutter 'roun' 'mongst de trash. Dis sorter distrack Brer Fox's 'tention, en look at de tattlin' bird, en de bird he keep on a callin', 'I got sump'n fer ter tell you, Brer Fox.' "Get on my tail, little Jack Sparrer," said Brer Fox, sezee, "'kaze I'm deef in one ear, en I can't hear out'n de udder. Git on my tail,' sezee. Den de little bird he up en hop on Brer Fox's tail. "Git on my back, little Jack Sparrer, 'kaze I'm deef in one ear, en I can't hear out'n de udder." Den de little bird hop on his back. "Hop on my head, little Jack Sparrer, 'kaze I'm deaf in bofe ears." En hop up de little bird. "Hop on my toof, little Jack Sparrer, 'kaze I'm deaf in one ear en I can't hear out'n de udder." De tattlin' little bird he hop on Brer Fox's toof, en den Here Uncle Remus paused, opened wide his mouth, and closed it again in a way that told the whole story. "Did the fox eat the bird all up?" asked the little boy. "Jedge B'ar come along nex' day," replied Uncle Remus, "en he fine some fedders, en fum dat word went 'roun' dat ole man Squinch Owl done kotch nudder w'at's his name." End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 20. How Mr. Rabbit Saved His Meat. "One time," said Uncle Remus, wetting his knife slowly and thoughtfully on the palm of his hand, and gazing reflectively in the fire, "one time Brer Wolf—" "Why, Uncle Remus," the little boy broke in, "I thought you said the rabbit scalded the wolf to death a long time ago." The old man was fairly caught, and he knew it. But this made little difference to him. A frown gathered on his usually serene brow as he turned his gaze upon the child, a frown in which both scorn and indignation were visible. Then all at once he seemed to regain control of himself. The frown was chased away by a look of Christian resignation. "Dar now, what did I tell you?" he exclaimed as if addressing a witness concealed under the bed. "Ain't I done tole you so? Bless gracious! Ef chilluns ain't gittin' so dey knows more'n ole folks, en dey'll 'spute you longer en 'spute longer, 'ceptin' der ma call um, w'ich I speck 'twon't be long 'fo' she will, en den I'll set yer by de chimney cornder en git some peace er mine. W'en ole Miss wuz livin'," continued the old man, still addressing some imaginary person, "hit is mo' than any er her chilluns 'ud dare to do to come 'sputin' 'longer me, en Mars John'll tell you de same any day you ax him." "Well, Uncle Remus, you know you said the rabbit poured hot water on the wolf and killed him," said the little boy. The old man pretended not to hear. He was engaged in searching among some scraps of leather under his chair, and kept on talking to the imaginary person. Finally, he found and drew forth a nicely plaited whip thong, with the red snapper all waxed and knotted. "I wuz fixin' up a whip for a little chap," he continued with a sigh, "but, bless gracious, 'fo' I kin git 'er done, the little chap done growed up twel he knew more'n I does." The child's eyes filled with tears and his lips began to quiver, but he said nothing, whereupon Uncle Remus immediately melted. "I declare to goodness," he said, reaching out and taking the little boy tenderly by the hand, "ef you ain't de ve'y spittin' image er ole Miss w'en I brung her de las' news er de war. Hit's des like skeerin' up a ghost w'at you ain't fear'd un." Then there was a pause, the old man patting the little child's hand caressingly. "You ain't mad, is you, honey?" Uncle Remus asked finally. "'Kaze ef you is, I'm gwine out here en butt my head 'gin de do' jamb." But the little boy wasn't mad. Uncle Remus had conquered him,
and he had conquered Uncle Remus in pretty much the same way before. But it was some time before Uncle Remus could go on with the story. He had to be coaxed. At last, however, he settled himself back in the chair and began. "Co'se, honey, hit mought er bin ole Brer Wolf, or it mought er bin na'er Brer Wolf. It mought er bin 'fo' he got kotch up wid. It mought er bin afterwuds. Ez de tale wuz gun to me des dat a way, I gin it unto you. One time, Brer Wolf wuz comin' 'long home fum a fishin' frolic. He saunter 'long the road, he did, wid his string er fish 'cross his shoulder, when fus news you know ole Miss Pa'tridge, she hop out'n de bushes en flutter 'long right at Brer Wolf's nose. Brer Wolf, he say to hisse'f dat ole Miss Pa'tridge tryin' fer ter tole 'im away fum her nes', en wid dat he lay his fish down en put out inter de bushes whar ole Miss Pa'tridge come fum. En 'bout dat time, Brer Rabbit, he happen along. Dar wuz de fishes, en dar wuz Brer Rabbit, en when dat de case, w'at you speck a sorter independent man like Brer Rabbit gwine do? I kin tell you dis, dat dem fishes ain't stay whar Brer Wolf put um at, en when Brer Wolf come back, dey wuz gone. Brer Wolf, he sot down en scratch his head, he did, en study, en den hit sorter rush inter his mind dat Brer Rabbit bin 'long dar, en den Brer Wolf, he put out fer Brer Rabbit's house, en w'en he git dar, he hail 'im. Brer Rabbit, he dunno nothin' 'tall 'bout no fishes. Brer Wolf, he up'n say he bleedz ter believe dat Brer Rabbit got dem fishes. Brer Rabbit denied up en down, but Brer Wolf stan' to it dat Brer Rabbit got dem fishes. Brer Rabbit, he say dat if Brer Wolf believe he got de fishes, den he give Brer Wolf leave fer ter kill de best cow he got. Brer Wolf, he tuck Brer Rabbit at his word en go off to de pasture en drive up de cattle en kill Brer Rabbit's best cow. Brer Rabbit, he hate mighty bad fer ter lose his cow, but he lay his plans, en he tell his chilluns dat he gwineter have dat beef yit. Brer Wolf, he bin tuck up by de patrollers 'fo' now, en he mighty skeered un um, en fus news you know, here come Brer Rabbit hollerin' en tellin' Brer Wolf dat de patrollers er comin'. "You run en hide, Brer Wolf," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee, "en I'll stay here en take keer er de cow twel you gits back," sezee. Soon's Brer Wolf hear talk er patrollers, he scramble off inter de underbrush like he bin shot out'n a gun, en he wa'n't mo'n gone 'fo' Brer Rabbit he whirl in en skint de cow en salt de hide down, en den he tuck en cut up de kyarkiss en stow it away in de smoke house, en den he tuck en stick de een er de cow tail in de groun'. Atter he gone en done all dis, den Brer Rabbit he squall out fer Brer Wolf. "Run here, Brer Wolf! Run here! Your cow gwine in de groun'! Run here!" When ole Brer Wolf got dar, which he come er scootin', dar wuz Brer Rabbit holdin' on to de cow tail fer ter keep it from gwine in de groun'. Brer Wolf he kotch holt, en dey give a pull er two, en up come de tail. Den Brer Rabbit he wink his off eye en say, sezee, "Dar! De tail done pull out en de cow gone," sezee. But Brer Wolf, he weren't de man fer ter give it up dat a way, en he got 'im a spade en a pickaxe en a shovel, en he dig en dig fer dat cow twel diggin' wuz pas' all endurance. En ole Brer Rabbit, he sot up dar in his front po'ch, en he smoke his seegyar. Eve'y time ole Brer Wolf stuck de pickaxe in de clay, Brer Rabbit, he giggle to his chilluns. He diggy, 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 but no meat dar. He diggy, 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 but no meat dar. 'Kaze all de time de cow wuz layin' pile up in his smoke house,
en him en his chilluns wuz eatin' fried beef en innards eve'y time de mouf water. Now den, honey, you take dis here whip," continued the old man, twining the leather thong around the little boy's neck, "en scamper up ter de big house, en tell Miss Sally fer ter give you some un it nex' time she finds yo' tracks in de sugar barrel."
End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 21. Mr. Rabbit meets his match again.
"Der wuz anudder man dat sorter played sharp on Brer Rabbit,"
said Uncle Remus, as, by some mysterious process, he twisted a hog's bristle into the end of a piece of thread, an operation which the little boy watched with great interest.
"In dem days," continued the old man, "de creeturs carried on matters same like folks. Dey went inter farmin', en I speck ef de trufe wuz ter come out, dey kep' store, en had der camp meetin' times en der barbecues w'en de wedder wuz 'greeable."
Uncle Remus evidently thought that the little boy wouldn't like to hear of any further discomfiture of Brer Rabbit, who had come to be sort of a hero, and he was not mistaken. "I thought the Terrapin was the only one that fooled the Rabbit," said the little boy dismally.
"Hit's des like I tell you, honey. Der ain't no smart man, 'cep dat dey's a smarter one. Ef ole Brer Rabbit hadn't er got kotch up wid, de neighbors 'ud take 'im for a ha'nt, en in dem times dey burnt witches 'fo' you could squinch yo' eyeballs. Dey did dat."
"Who fooled the Rabbit this time?" the little boy asked. When Uncle Remus had the bristle sot in the thread, he proceeded with the story.
"One time Brer Rabbit en ole Brer Buzzard 'cluded dey'd sorter go shares en crap tergedder. Hit wuz a mighty good year, en de truck turn out monst'us well, but bimeby, w'en de time come fer dividin' it, hit come to light dat ole Brer Buzzard ain't got nothin'. De crap wuz all gone, en dey wa'n't nothin' fer ter show for it. Brer Rabbit, he make like he wuz in a wuss fix'n Brer Buzzard, en he mope 'roun', he did, like he fear'd dey gwineter sell 'im out. Brer Buzzard, he ain't say nothin', but he keep up a monst'us thinkin', en one day he come 'long en holler en tell Brer Rabbit dat he done fine rich gol' mine des 'cross de river. "You come en go longer wid me, Brer Rabbit," says Brer Tucky Buzzard, sezee. "I'll scratch en you kin grabble, en 'tween de two of us we'll make short work er dat gol' mine," sezee. Brer Rabbit, he wuz high up fer de job, but he study en study, he did, how he gwineter git 'cross de water, kaze eve'y time he git his foot wet all de fambly kotch col'. Den he up en ax Brer Buzzard how he gwineter do. Brer Buzzard, he up en say dat he'd carry Brer Rabbit 'cross. En wid dat ole Brer Buzzard, he squot down, he did, en spread his wings, en Brer Rabbit, he mounted, en up dey riz."
There was a pause. "What did the Buzzard do then?" asked the little boy.
"Dey riz," continued Uncle Remus, "en w'en dey lit in de top er de highest sorter pine, en de pine w'at dey lit in wuz growin' on de island, en de island wuz in de middle er de river, wid de deep water runnin' all 'roun'. Dey ain't more'n lit 'fo' Brer Rabbit he know which way de win' wuz blowin', en by de time ole Brer Buzzard got hisse'f balance on a limb, Brer Rabbit, he up en say, sezee:
"W'ilst we er restin' here, Brer Buzzard, en bein's you bin so good, I got sump'n fer ter tell you," sezee. "I got a gol' mine er my own, one w'at I make myse'f, "en I speck we better go back ter mine 'fo' we bother longer yo'n," sezee. Den ole Brer Buzzard he laugh, he did, twel he shake, en Brer Rabbit he sing out: "Hol' on, Brer Buzzard! Don't flop yo' wings w'en you laugh, kaze den ef you does, sump'n 'll drap fum up yer, en my gol' mine won't do you no good, en needer will yo'n do me no good." But 'fo' dey got down fum dar, Brer Rabbit done tole all 'bout de crap, en he had a promise fer ter pervide fair en square. So Brer Buzzard he kyar 'im back, en Brer Rabbit he walk weak in de knees for a month afterwards. End of tale.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 22. A Story About the Little Rabbits.
"Find 'em where you will, en when you may," remarked Uncle Remus with emphasis. "Good chilluns always git tuck keer un. Der wuz ole Brer Rabbit's chilluns. Dey minded der daddy en mammy fum de day's een ter de day's een'. W'en ole man Rabbit say scoot, dey scooted, en w'en ole Miss Rabbit say scat, dey scatted. Dey did dat. En dey kep der cloze clean, en dey ain't had no smut on der nose needer."
Involuntarily, the hand of the little boy went up to his face, and he scrubbed the end of his nose with his coat sleeve.
"Dey wuz good chilluns," continued the old man heartily, "en ef dey hadn't a been, der wuz one time w'en dey wouldn't a been no little rabbits, n'er one, dat's w'at."
What time was that, Uncle Remus? The little boy asked.
"De time w'en Brer Fox drapped in at Brer Rabbit's house, en didn't find nobody dar 'ceppin' de little rabbits. Ole Brer Rabbit, he wuz off some'rs raidin' in a collard patch, en ole Miss Rabbit, she wuz tendin' on a quiltin' in de neighborhood, en w'iles de little rabbits wuz playin' hidin' switch, in drapped Brer Fox. De little rabbits wuz so fat dat dey fa'rly make his mouf water, but he 'member 'bout Brer Wolf, en he skeer'd fer ter gobble um up, 'ceppin' he got some excuse. De little rabbits, dey mighty skittish, en dey sorter huddle deyse'f up tergedder en watch Brer Fox's motions. Brer Fox, he sot dar en study w'at sorter excuse he gwineter make up. Bimeby, he see a great big stalk er sugar cane stan'in' up in de cornder, en he cle'r up his throat en talk biggity. "Here, you young Rabs dar, sail 'roun' yer en break me off a piece er dat der sweetnin' tree," sezee, en den he cough. De little rabbits, dey got out de sugar cane, dey did, en dey rastle wid it, en sweat over it, but 'twan't no use, dey couldn't break it. Brer Fox he make like he ain't watchin', but he keep on hollerin', "Hurry up dar, Rabs, I'm a waitin' on you." En de little rabbits, dey hustle 'roun' en rastle wid it, but dey couldn't break it. Bimeby dey hear little birds singin' on de top er de house, en de song w'at de little birds sing wuz dish yer: "Take your toofies en gnaw it, take your toofies en saw it, saw it en yoke it, en den you kin broke it." Den de little rabbits, dey git mighty glad, en dey gnawed de cane mos' 'fo' ole Brer Fox git his legs uncrossed, en w'en dey kyar'd in de cane, Brer Fox he sot dar en study how he gwineter make some mo' excuse fer nabbin' um, en bimeby he git up en git down de sifter w'at wuz hangin' on de wall, en holler out: "Come yer, Rabs! Take dish yer sifter en run down to de spring en fetch me some fresh water." De little rabbits, dey run down to de spring en try ter dip up de water wid de sifter, but co'se it all run out, en it keep on runnin' out, twel bimeby de little rabbit sot down en 'gun ter cry. Den de little bird settin' up in de tree, he begin fer ter sing, en dish yer's de song w'at he sing. Sifter hol' water same ez a tray. Ef you fill it up wid moss en daub it wid clay, de fox git madder de longer you stay. Fill it wid moss en daub it wid clay. Up dey jump, de little rabbits did, en dey fix de sifter so 'twon't leak, en den dey kyar de water back to ole Brer Fox. Den Brer Fox he git mighty mad, en p'int out a great big stick er wood, en tell de little rabbits fer ter put dat on de fier. De little chaps dey got 'roun' de wood, dey did, en dey lift at it so hard twel dey could see der own sins, but de wood ain't budge. Den dey hear de little bird singin', en dish yer's de song w'at he sing. Spit in your hands en tuck it en toll it, en git behine it en push it en pull it. Spit in your hands en rear back en roll it. En des 'bout de time dey got de wood on de fier, der daddy he come skippin' in, en de little bird he flewed away. Brer Fox he seed his game wuz up, en 'twan't long 'fo' he make his 'skuse en start fer ter go. "You better stay en take a snack wid me, Brer Fox," sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. "Sence Brer Wolf done quite comin' en settin' up wid me, I gittin' so I feels right lonesome dese long nights," sezee. But Brer Fox he button up his coat collar tight, en put out fer home. En dat w'at you better do, honey, kaze I see Miss Sally shadder sailin' backards en forrards 'fo' de winder, en de fus news you know, she'll be 'spectin' of you.
End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 23. Mr. Rabbit and Mr. Bear. "There was one season," said Uncle Remus, pulling thoughtfully at his whiskers, "when Brer Fox say to hisse'f dat he speck he better whirl in en plant a goober patch, en in dem days, mon, hit wuz tech en go. De word wa'n't mo'n out'n his mouf 'fo' de groun' wuz broked up en de goobers wuz planted. Ole Brer Rabbit, he sot off en watched de motions, he did, en he sorter shet one eye en sing to his chilluns: "'Ti-yi dungalee, hide um pea, I pick um pea. Hit grow in de groun', hit grow so free. Ti-yi dem goober pea.' "Sho nuff, w'en de goobers begun ter ripen up, eve'y time Brer Fox go down ter his patch, he fine whar somebody bin grabblin' 'mongst de vines, en he git mighty mad. He sorter speck who de somebody is, but ole Brer Rabbit he cover his tracks so cute dat Brer Fox dunner how ter ketch 'im. Bimeby, one day Brer Fox take a walk all 'roun' de groun' pea patch, en 'twan't long 'fo' he fine a crack in de fence whar de rail done bin rub right smoove, en right dar he sot 'im a trap. He tuck'n bend down a hick'ry saplin' growin' in de fence cornder, en tie one een' uv a plow line on de top, en in de udder een' he fix a loop knot, en dat he fasten wid a trigger right in de crack. Nex' mawnin' w'en ole Brer Rabbit come slippin' 'long en crope thoo de crack, de loop knot kotch 'im behime de folegs, en de saplin' flewed up, en dar he wuz 'twix' de heavens en de yeth. Dar he swung, en he fear'd he gwineter fall, en he fear'd he wa'n't gonna fall. W'ile he wuz a fixin' up a tale fer Brer Fox, he hear a lumberin' down de road, en presently yer come ole Brer B'ar amblin' 'long fum whar he bin takin' a bee tree. Brer Rabbit he hail 'im. "'Howdy, Brer B'ar.' Brer B'ar
he look 'roun', en bimeby he see Brer Rabbit swingin' fum de saplin', en he holler out: "'Heyo, Brer Rabbit! How you come on dis mawnin?' "'Much 'blige, I'm middlin', Brer B'ar,' sez Brer Rabbit, sezee. Den Brer B'ar, he ax Brer Rabbit w'at he doin' up dar in de elements, en Brer Rabbit, he up'n say he makin' $1 a minute. Brer B'ar, he say how? Brer Rabbit say he keepin' crows out Brer Fox's groun' pea patch. Den he ax Brer B'ar ef he don't wanter make $1 a minute, kaze he got a big fambly of chilluns fer ter take keer un, en den he make sech nice scarecrow. Brer B'ar 'low dat he'd take de job, en den Brer Rabbit show 'im how ter bend down de saplin', en 'twan't long 'fo' Brer B'ar wuz swingin' up dar in Brer Rabbit's place. Den Brer Rabbit, he put out fer Brer Fox's house, en w'en he got dar he sing out: "'Brer Fox! Oh, Brer Fox! Come out yer, Brer Fox, en I'll show you de man w'at bin stealin' yo' goobers.' Brer Fox, he grab up his walkin' stick, en bofe un um went runnin' back down ter de goober patch, en w'en dey got dar, sho nuff, dar wuz ole Brer B'ar. "'Oh, yes, you is gotch, isn't you?' sez Brer Fox, en befo' Brer B'ar kin explain, Brer Rabbit he jump up en down, en holler out: "'Hit 'im in de mouf, Brer Fox! Hit 'im in de mouf!' En Brer Fox, he draw back wid de walkin' cane, en blip, he tuck 'im. En eve'y time Brer B'ar tried ter explain, Brer Fox shower down on 'im. W'ile all dis 'uz gwine on, Brer Rabbit, he slip off en git in a mud hole, en des laugh twel his eyes be stickin' out, kaze he know'd dat Brer B'ar be comin' atter 'im. Sho nuff, bimeby, here come Brer B'ar down de road, en w'en he git ter de mud hole, he say: "'Howdy, Brer Frog! Is you seed Brer Rabbit go by yer?' "'He des gone by,' sez Brer Rabbit, en ole man B'ar tuck off down de road like a skeer'd mule, en Brer Rabbit, he come out en dry hisse'f in de sun, en go home ter his fambly same ez any udder man." "The bear didn't catch the rabbit, then?" inquired the little boy, sleepily. "Jump up from dar, honey!" exclaimed Uncle Remus by way of reply. "I ain't got no time fer ter be settin' yer proppin' yo' eyelids open." End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 24. Mr. Bear catches old Mr. Bullfrog. "Well, Uncle Remus," said the little boy, counting to see if he hadn't lost a marble somewhere, "the bear didn't catch the rabbit after all, did he?" "Now you're talkin', honey," replied the old man, his earnest face breaking up into little eddies of smiles. "Now you're talkin' sho. 'Tain't bin proned inter no Brer B'ar fer ter kotch Brer Rabbit. Hit's sorter like settin' a mule fer ter trap a hummin' bird. But Brer B'ar, he tuck'n got hisse'f inter some mo' trouble, w'ich it look like it mighty easy. Ef folks could make der livin' longer gittin' inter trouble," continued the old man, looking curiously at the little boy, "ole Miss Favers wouldn't be bodderin' yo' ma fer ter borry a cupful er sugar eve'y now en den, en it look like ter me dat I knows a nigger dat wouldn't be squattin' 'roun' yer makin' deze yer fish baskets." "How did the bear get into more trouble, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy. "Natchul, honey. Brer B'ar, he tuck a notion dat ole Brer Bullfrog wuz de man w'at fool 'im, en he say dat he'd come up wid 'im ef 'twuz a year atterwuds. But 'twan't no year, en 'twan't no month, en mo'n dat, hit wa'n't skasely a week, w'en bimeby One day Brer B'ar was gwine home fum de takin' of a bee tree, en lo en beholds, who should he see but ole Brer Bull frog settin' out on de aidge er de mud muddle fas' asleep. Brer B'ar drap his axe, he did, en crope up, en retch out wid his paw, en scoop ole Brer Bull frog in des dis-a-way." Here the old man used his hand ladle fashion by way of illustration. "He scoop 'im in, en dar he wuz. When Brer B'ar got his clampers on 'im good, he sot down en talk at 'im. "'Howdy, Brer Bull frog, howdy, en how yo' fambly? I hope dey er well, Brer Bull frog, 'kaze dis day you got some business wid me w'at'll last you a mighty long time.' Brer Bull frog, he dunno w'at to say. He dunno w'at's up. He don't say nothin'. Ole Brer B'ar he keep runnin' on. "'You're de man w'at tuck'n fool me 'bout Brer Rabbit t'er day. You had yo' fun, Brer Bull frog, en now I git mine.' Den Brer Bull frog, he begin ter git skeer'd, he did, en he up'n say: "'W'at I bin doin', Brer B'ar? How I bin foolin' you?' Den Brer B'ar laugh, en make like he dunno, but he keep on talkin'. "'Oh, no, Brer Bull frog, you ain't de man w'at stick yo' head up outer de water en tell me Brer Rabbit done gone on by. Oh, no, you ain't de man. I boun' you ain't. 'Bout dat time you wuz at home wid yo' fambly, whar you allers is. I dunno whar you wuz, but I knows whar you is, Brer Bull frog, en it's you en me for it. Atter de sun goes down dis day, you don't fool no mo' folks goin' 'long dis road.' Co'se, Brer Bull frog dunno w'at Brer B'ar drivin' at, but he knows sump'n hatter be done, en dat mighty soon, 'kaze Brer B'ar 'gun ter snap his jaws tergedder en foam at de mouf, en Brer Bull frog holler out: "'Oh, pray, Brer B'ar, let me off dis time, en I won't never do so no mo'. Oh, pray, Brer B'ar, do let me off dis time, en I'll show you de fattest bee tree in de woods.' Ole Brer B'ar, he chomp his toofies en foam at de mouf. Brer Bull frog he des up en squall: "'Oh, pray, Brer B'ar, I won't never do so no mo'. Oh, pray, Brer B'ar, let me off dis time.' But ole Brer B'ar say he gwinnter make way wid 'im, en den he sot en study, ole Brer B'ar did, how he gwinnter squench Brer Bull frog. He know he can't drown 'im, but he ain't got no fire fer ter burn 'im, en he git mighty pestered. Bimeby, ole Brer Bull frog, he sorter stop his cryin' en his boo-hooin', en he up'n say: "'Ef you're gwineter kill me, Brer B'ar, carry me out dar to dat big flat rock out dar on de aidge er de mill pond, whar I can see my fambly, en atter I see um, den you can take yo' axe en squoosh me.' Dis look so fa'r en squar' dat Brer B'ar he 'gree, en he take ole Brer Bull frog by one er his behime legs en sling his axe on his shoulder, en off he put fer de big flat rock. W'en he git dar, he lay Brer Bull frog down on de rock, en Brer Bull frog make like he lookin' 'roun' fer his folks. Den Brer B'ar he draw long breff, en pick up his axe. Den he spit in his hands, en draw back, en come down on de rock. Pow!"
"Did he kill the frog, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy, as the old man paused to scoop up a thimbleful of glowing embers in his pipe.
"'Deed en dat he didn't, honey. Twix de time when Brer B'ar raise up wid his axe, en when he come down wid it, ole Brer Bull frog he lipt up en dove down in de mill pond, kerblink, kerblunk. En when he wuz way out in de pond, he riz a singin', en dish yer's de song w'at he sing: "'Ingle go jang, my joy, Ingo go jang, my joy. I'm right at home, my joy, my joy. Ingo go jang, my joy.
"That's a mighty funny song," said the little boy. "Funny now, I speck," said the old man. "But 'tweren't funny in dem days, en 'twouldn't be funny now ef folks knowed much about de wool frog language ez dey useter. Dat's w'at." End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 25. How Mr. Rabbit Lost His Fine Bushy Tail. "One time," said Uncle Remus, sighing heavily and settling himself back in his seat with an air of melancholy resignation, "one time, Brer Rabbit was gwine 'long down de road, shaking his big bushy tail, en feelin' des as scrumptious as a bee martin wid a fresh bug." Here the old man paused and glanced at the little boy, but it was evident that the youngster had become so accustomed to the marvelous developments of Uncle Remus's stories that the extraordinary statement made no unusual impression upon him. Therefore the old man began again, and this time in a louder and more insinuating tone. "One time ole man Rabbit, he was goin' 'long down de road shaking his long bushy tail and feelin' mighty biggity." This was effective. "Great goodness, Uncle Remus!" exclaimed the little boy in open-eyed wonder. "Everybody knows that rabbits haven't got long bushy tails." The old man shifted his position in his chair, and allowed his venerable head to drop forward until his whole appearance was suggestive of the deepest dejection, and this was intensified by a groan that seemed to be the result of great mental agony. Finally he spoke, but not as addressing himself to the little boy. "I notices dat dem folks w'at makes a great admiration 'bout w'at dey knows is des de folks w'at you can't put no dependence in w'en de 'casion come up. Yer one un um now, en he done come en excuse me in allowin' dat rabbits is got long bushy tails, which goodness knows ef I'd a dreamt it, I'd a whirl in en undreamt it." "Well, Uncle Remus, you said rabbits had long bushy tails," replied the little boy. "Now you know you did." "Ef I ain't forgit it off'n my mine, I say dat ole Brer Rabbit wuz gwine down de big road shakin' his long bushy tail. Dat w'at I say, en dat I stands by." The little boy looked puzzled, but he didn't say anything. After a while the old man continued: "Now, den, ef dat's 'greed ter, I'm gwine on, en ef 'tain't 'greed ter, den I'm gwineter pick up my cane en look atter my own int'rust. I got wuk lyin' 'roun' yer dat's des natchally gittin' mouldy." The little boy still remained quiet, and Uncle Remus proceeded: "One day Brer Rabbit wuz gwine down de road shakin' his long bushy tail, w'en who should he strike up wid but ole Brer Fox, gwine amblin' 'long wid a big string er fish. W'en dey pass de time er day wid one anudder, Brer Rabbit, he open up de confab, he did, en he ax Brer Fox whar he git dat nice string er fish, en Brer Fox, he up en 'spon' dat he kotch um. Brer Rabbit, he say wharbouts, en Brer Fox, he say down at de baptizin' creek, en Brer Rabbit, he ax how, 'kaze in dem days dey wuz monst'us fond er minners, en Brer Fox, he sot down on de log, he did, en he up en tell Brer Rabbit dat all he gotter do fer ter git a big mess er minners is to go ter de creek atter sundown, en drap his tail in de water, en set dar twel daylight,
en den draw up a whole armful of fishes, en dem w'at he don't want he kin fling back. Right dar's whar Brer Rabbit drap his watermillion, kase he tuck'n sot out dat night en went a fishin'. De wedder wuz sorter cole, en Brer Rabbit he got 'im a bottle er dram en put out fer de creek, en w'en he got dar he pick out a good place, en he sorter squot down, he did, en let his tail hang in de water. He sot dar, en he sot dar, en he drunk his dram, en he think he gwineter freeze, but bimeby day come, en dar he was. He make a pull, en he feel like he comin' in two, en he fetch anudder jerk, en lo and beholds where was his tail. There was a long pause. "Did it come off, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy presently. "She did dat," replied the old man with unction. "She did dat, en dat w'at make all deze yer bobtail rabbits w'at you see hoppin' en scatterin' thoo de woods." "Are they all that way just because the old rabbit lost his tail in the creek?" asked the little boy. "Dat's it, honey," replied the old man. "Dat's w'at dey tells me. Looks like dey bleedz ter take atter der pa." End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 26. Mr. Terrapin shows his strength. "Brer Tarrypin wuz de outnest man," says Uncle Remus, rubbing his hands together contemplatively, and chuckling to himself in a very significant manner. "He wuz de outnest man er de whole gang. He wuz dat." The little boy sat perfectly quiet, betraying no impatience when Uncle Remus paused to hunt, first in one pocket and then in another, for enough crumbs of tobacco to replenish his pipe. Presently the old man proceeded. "One night Miss Meadows en de gals dey begun a candy pullin', en so many er de neighbors came in 'sponse to de invite dat dey hatter put de 'lasses in de wash pot en bile de fire in de yard. Brer B'ar, he holp Miss Meadows bring de wood. Brer Fox, he mend de fire. Brer Wolf, he kep de dogs off. Brer Rabbit, he grease de bottom er de plates fer ter keep de candy fum stickin'. En Brer Tarrypin, he clum up in a cheer en say he'd watch en see dat de molasses don't bile over. Dey wuz all dar, en dey weren't cuttin' up no didos nudder, kaze Miss Meadows, she done put her foot down, she did, en say dat w'en dey come ter her place, dey hatter hang up a flag er truce at de front gate en abide by it. Well, den, w'iles dey wuz all a settin' dar en de molasses wuz a bilin' en a blubberin', dey got ter runnin' on talkin' mighty biggity. Brer Rabbit, he say he de swiffes', but Brer Tarrypin, he rock long in de cheer en watch de 'lasses. Brer Fox, he say he de sharpes', but Brer Tarrypin, he rock long. Brer Wolf, he say he de mos' savages', but Brer Tarrypin, he rock en he rock long. Brer B'ar, he say de mos' strongest, but Brer Tarrypin, he rock en he des keep on a rockin'. Bimeby he sorter shet one eye en say, sezee, "Hit look like 'periently dat de whole hard shell ain't nowhars alongside dis yer crowd. Yet here I is, en I'm de same man w'at show Brer Rabbit dat he ain't de swiffes', en I'm de same man w'at kin show Brer B'ar dat he ain't de strongest," sezee. Den dey all laugh en holler, kaze it look like Brer B'ar mo' stronger dan a steer. Bimeby Miss Meadows, she up and ax, she did, how he gwine do it. "Gimme a good strong rope," says Brer Tarrypin, sezee, "en lemme git in a puddle of water, en den let Brer B'ar see ef he kin pull me out," sezee. Den dey all laugh agin. Brer B'ar, he ups en says, sezee, "We ain't got no rope," sezee. "No," says Brer Tarrypin, sezee, "en needer is you got de strenk," sezee, en den Brer Tarrypin, he rock en rock long, en watch de molasses a bilin' en a blubberin'. Atter a w'ile, Miss Meadows, she up'n say, she did, dat she'd take'n loan de young men her bed cord, en w'iles de candy wuz a coolin' in de plates, dey could all go ter de branch en see Brer Tarrypin carry out his projick. Brer Tarrypin, continued Uncle Remus, in a tone at once confidential and argumentative, "went much bigger mo'n de palm er my han', en it look mighty funny fer ter year 'im braggin' 'bout how he kin outpull Brer B'ar, but dey got de bed cord atter w'ile, en den dey all put out fer de branch. W'en Brer Tarrypin find de place he wanter, he tuck one een' er de bed cord en gi' de udder een' ter Brer B'ar. "'Now, den, ladies en gents,' sez Brer Tarrypin, sezee, 'you all go wid Brer B'ar up dar in de woods, en I'll stay yer. En w'en you kin year me holler, den's de time fer Brer B'ar fer ter see ef he kin haul in de slack er de rope. You all take keer er dat dere een',' sezee, 'en I'll take keer er dish yer een',' sezee. Den dey all put out en lef Brer Tarrypin at de branch, en w'en dey got good en gone, he dove down inter de water, he did, en tie de bed cord hard en fast ter one er deze yer big clay roots, en den he riz up en give a whoop. Brer B'ar he wrop de bed cord roun' his han' en wink at de gals, en wid dat he give a big juck, but Brer Tarrypin ain't budge. Den he take bofe han's en give a big pull, but all de same Brer Tarrypin ain't budge. Den he tu'n 'roun', he did, en put de rope 'cross his shoulders en try ter walk off wid Brer Tarrypin, but Brer Tarrypin look like he don't feel like walkin'. Den Brer Wolf he put in en holp Brer B'ar pull, but des like he didn't, en den dey all holp 'im, en bless grashus, w'iles dey wuz all a pullin', Brer Tarrypin he holler en ax um why dey don't take up de slack. Den w'en Brer Tarrypin feel 'em quit pullin', he dove down, he did, en ontied de rope, en by de time dey got ter de branch, Brer Tarrypin he wuz settin' up on de aidge er de water des as natchul ez de nex' un, en he up en say, sezee, "Dat las' pull you done wuz a mighty stiff un, en a little more'n you'd a had me," sezee. "You're monst'us stout, Brer B'ar," sezee, "en you pulls like a yoke er steers, but I sorter had de purchase on you," sezee. Den Brer B'ar, bein' ez his mouf 'gun ter water atter de sweetnin', he up en say he speck de candy's ripe, en off dey put atter it. "It's a wonder," said the little boy, after a while, "that the rope didn't break." "Break who?" exclaimed Uncle Remus, with a touch of indignation in his tone. "Break who? In dem days Miss Meadows's bed cord could have hilt a mule." This put an end to whatever doubts the child might have entertained. End of chapter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 27. Why Mr. Possum Has No Hair on His Tail. "Hit look like ter me," said Uncle Remus, frowning,
As the little boy came hopping and skipping into the old man's cabin,
Did I see a young'un 'bout yo' size playin' and makin' free wid dem ar chilluns er ole Miss Favors yistiddy, en w'en I seed dat, I drapped my axe, en I come in yer en sot flat down right whar youer settin' now, en I say to myse'f dat it's 'bout time for ole Remus fer to hang up en quit. Dat's des 'zackly w'at I say."
"Well, Uncle Remus, they called me," said the little boy in a penitent tone. "They come and called me, and said they had a pistol and some powder over there."
"Dar now!" exclaimed the old man, indignantly. "Dar now! W'at I bin sayin'? Hit's des a born blessin' dat you wa'n't brung home on a litter wid bofe eyeballs hangin' out en one ear clean gone. Dat's w'at 'tis. Hit's des a born blessin'. Hit hope me up might'ly de udder day w'en I hear Miss Sally layin' down de law 'bout you en dem Favors chilluns. Yit, lo en beholes, de fus news I knows you is han' en glove wid um. Hit's nuff fer to fetch ole Miss right up out'n dat buryin' groun' fum down dar in Putmon County, en w'at yo' gran'ma wouldn't er stood, me en yo' ma ain't gwineter stan' nudder. En de nex' time I hear 'bout sech a come off ez dis, right den en dar I'm boun' to lay de case 'fo' Miss Sally. Dem's Favorses wa'n't no 'count 'fo' de war, en dey wa'n't no 'count in doin' de war, en dey ain't no 'count atterwuds. En w'iles my head's hot, you ain't gwineter go mixin' up yo'se'f wid de riff raff ef creation."
The little boy made no further attempt to justify his conduct. He was a very wise little boy, and he knew that, in Uncle Remus's eyes, he'd been guilty of a flagrant violation of the family.